right, welcome to another episode of Writing Prose. I'm your host Shay Zombie, and I'm here with a super amazing panel. I have Will Perdomo. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm more or less good. Otherwise, except for the fact that I don't have an intro video because I'm super lame and really lazy. Eventually, I'm sure I will make one for this. We also have Michael Bancroft. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you going?
That way. There we go. Okay, this is really difficult.
Right.
And then I got the super awesome Frankie. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Well, he outshone
all
us.
of that is always just like right there, ready for you. Just kills me.
I got props everywhere.
Before we get started, I want to shout out Michael Green and Phil over there in the chat. Thanks, Mike Green, for coming in. He's our guy essentially. He's the sergeant of Incredible Comics. He's always wrangling all the maniacs to show up to places like this. And Phil, who's doing Magic Cop on Indiegogo, great writer himself. So
yes,
check out Magic Cop.
Offered to let him in, and apparently he is just too busy for us today.
Yep.
So,
well, I want to be Phil
Phil
when I grow up, you know.
But he is probably going to be on next week. So if you want to catch Phil, definitely make sure that you keep checking.
Phil's a great guy. I hope to see him on here.
I see that Frankie saw the comment about the clown nose. Gargoyle, you need to stop coming in late because it was on and there was a horn. So Frankie, don't you give him the horn. He was late. Okay. He doesn't get it.
All right. You don't get the horn.
That's only for the early birds.
Yeah, right. Next time show up on time. When we're 30 minutes later than we said we were going to be. All right, so today's topic for Writing Prose, we're going to talk all about themes. And since this was a suggestion from Will, I want you to kick off. What's the first topic about themes that you want to cover?
Well, I think we all know that comics, pretty much the bread and butter of comics is plot. We don't have the benefit of space and like a motion picture does, so we have to rely on very tightly plotted stories. But no one that really asks, where do these stories come from? I mean, is it a conscious thing? Is it? I don't think we can all deny that a writer is essentially a permeable membrane of what's going on around him, what he's read, what he's seen, what he's experiencing, what's going on in the culture. And whether we know it or not, that's passing through us and into our stories to some degree. I mean, we're fetching these ideas from somewhere. And I think it's important because if you look at a certain set of writers, they're going to carry with them from project to project certain things that they always include in their stories. And then we would call that maybe theme. These things that always seem to float to the top whenever you're reading Garth Ennis, Dostoevsky, whoever it is. So, and I think that's a fascinating thing because it kind of lets you into the psychology of the writer and the culture at large, in my opinion.
Okay, so going along that, what sort of themes do you guys see that kind of permeate your writing?
Well, I'll start. Sorry. I personally, and this isn't something that I set out to do at all. This is something that kind of I just found evolved naturally, and maybe that is just a reflection of the sort of things I'm interested in, exactly like Will was saying. Themes of liberty and authority. The big the collective versus the individual. I find that permeates a lot of what I write about. I also enjoy things like mortality. People dealing with, dying and living. And then as well, you get to, if you're writing fantasy, you get to play around with immortality. And that might not seem like a really relevant theme a lot of the time. But I don't know, as we head into the future, it could actually, maybe not, full immortality, but definitely extended lifespans could sort of, open up a can of worms in our society. And these are the sort of things that, I've found that I've just sort of, been drawn to in my writing. That's me. I don't know about you guys.
What about you, Frankie?
I think the most basic, though, theme that most would probably start with is very simple, would be your basic good versus evil. And then, like what I did in one of my books was I'll sprinkle in other things. Like for example, I had it's not open anymore. We had I don't know if you ever saw this, the kids book I wrote, the Ghost on Howling Hill. It's written all in how can I back up?
Wait, hold up.
All
Okay,
right.
okay. There we go.
And I wrote the whole thing in rhyme, like it was like a poem thing. But I did sprinkle in, besides making a cute little story for kids, there's also elements of teaching obedience. There's a theme in there. Another one was trying to be good, and another one that I put in there, I touched on it, was not to judge people by their appearances, more of like their character. So you could sprinkle in different themes as well, besides one major one. But that's how I approach that. Revenge is another one that I had in Through the Woods. I had put revenge in there as well. So that seems to be a big one too. But yeah.
What about you, Will?
Well, for me, I'd like to hear Shay what she thinks about this. Then I'll go.
So I have a very difficult time writing stuff that I can't put a lot of emotional charge behind. So if I'm trying to write something and there's not at least most of what I write ends up being poetry. And so a lot of my poetry ends up focusing around a specific feeling or emotion that I had, either physical or just mental, spiritual kind of feelings. And I try to convey that through words to other people. If it's not super emotionally charged, I have a lot harder time kind of getting behind my own writing. And so a lot of the times my stuff centers around depression, anxiety, heartbreak, love. Love is a really big one. A couple things for happiness and things like that. But usually I kind of go the more Edgar Allan Poe route where things are a lot more doom and gloom. And in my writing, if I actually do a story, it usually deals a lot with a person's struggle and how their struggle for them is basically like a mountain, and for the people around them, they don't necessarily see it the same. They see it as something that's a lot more minimal, or something that they should just be able to get over, and it doesn't seem like it should be this big of a deal. And my focus on writing is usually trying to show how it is, because there's so many people around me who do go through a lot of very difficult emotional things, and a lot of people just don't get it. And it's always been kind of a sticking point for me, that there's a lot of people that are so close-minded, and that, the amount of times I told my mom stuff that my friends do, she goes, well, that's silly, anxious about X, Y, and Z. And I was like, it's called anxiety. Like of course it's silly, it's irrational, but that doesn't make it any less real for that person going through it. So I try to show kind of the side that other people don't really consider or see all that often.
And so on my end, the reason why I wanted to do this topic with you guys is because the subject of theme, sort of immortalizes the story, right? Because it makes it so it lasts beyond just a momentary, let's say, a momentary bit of entertainment, right? It's you watched it, it's over, you throw it in the dustbin. It's something that, because it has a timeless quality because of theme, it's applicable going into the future. So you could watch Lord of the Rings or read Lord of the Rings, and you're going to find new applicability to it, whether you're 20 or 25, 30 or 50, right? You're going to keep finding these new layers of themes, because you're going to, and it's not so much that you're smarter than the material, that the material, your wisdom is getting up to the material. Now, I'm not saying I am more wise than my work, but that, I think, is what gives the work an immortal quality beyond the writer. And I don't even think the writer's aware of it most of the time he's doing it. Right. I think he's sort of an antenna for it. And this is what I mean by permeability, right? That the writer's a membrane, and he's kind of almost passively, listening to the news, seeing what's going on socially, reading whatever maybe holy book or history that he's reading, or philosophy, and all of that's funneling through this into a character.
Yes.
And I think that makes the characters live a little, and everybody see, oh, I can understand that, or in another culture understand it. Mm-hmm. Because it ends up becoming universal themes, because it's not an active thing I think the writer is doing. And I think Michael was saying a minute ago that he likes to explore these themes of immortality and death. But I would ask Michael, are you doing this consciously, or is it something you just find yourself after the fact recognizing when you look at your work?
After the fact. It's all been exactly like you're saying, like an antenna. It's not something that I sat down intentionally to do. The plot and the characters, ended up being what they were. And, because I just became so invested in what they're all about, their motivations and their lives, and what, how they would see the world that they've found themselves in. You write for so long, you just kind of, this stuff just sort of seeps in, and this is what they must be going through. And there's these central themes that run across their lives. For myself, and as well, these things, they kind of jump on you out of the blue. I was never big on stories of parenthood, father stories, mother stories, that relationship between the parent and the child. But since becoming a parent, those stories that aren't even really about that, but have those themes in it. Just one that comes to the top of my head right now. Say Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump, it's not specifically about the relationship between him and his mother, and then eventually him becoming a parent. But they're the moments in that story now as a parent that hit that I remember, because I felt them. I've since watched it since becoming a parent, and I felt that moment, and that really just connects me really deep in the heart. And that's why you're so right there, talking about how this is how the stories go on beyond the plot and beyond whatever happened in the movie.
Well, so have any of you guys ever realized that you have a central theme that kind of permeates through your writing, and you've actively tried to divert away from it? Because I know anytime I've tried to do that, where I'm like, I'm going to write something happy, or I'm going to write something that's just really kind of superficial, that doesn't really hit me down in the core and make me feel anything necessarily, but I'm gonna see if I can do it. Anytime I've written something like that and I've had anyone else read it, they're like, it's okay, it feels kind of sterile, and I'm like, yeah, I hate it, it's horrible, I want to burn it. It's nothing that I'm proud of. I don't like it at all. And I feel like it's because we all, as writers, we all have our voice that everybody kind of talks about, and I think that's the theme that ends up going through your writing, is kind of what your voice is. That's what you tend
exactly
to bring.
I think that's a good way to put it, is that theme and voice are kind of interchangeable. I think it depends on if it's your voice or another voice.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to hear you guys, what you just said. Is there something you're maybe working out that you're not too proud of, or that you're proud of, for example, that you find yourself doing, that you carry in from work to work, or are you able to isolate different things?
As for me, I think it's just a reflection of where my head's been for the last, say, 15 years. I just sort of had a kind of a social and political awakening, and I never intended for that to seep into my writing, but I guess it just sort of became inevitable. Mm-hmm. And for me, the great sort of struggle between good and evil in my story isn't so much that classic, pure classic story of good versus evil. It's more of I guess you would call, it's sort of like what we find ourselves doing now. We're struggling in society to find a balance between, freedom and safety, for example. So even right now with coronavirus, I didn't expect that this many people in the world would just be completely fine with giving away so many freedoms for kind of collective safety. But this event has really exposed that there are probably the majority of people in the world will just accept almost totalitarian rule if it gives them even the illusion that they're slightly safer. So I know this is the stuff that I've just had a kind of my own personal political awakening over the last 15 years, and it's just kind of crept in. So yeah, I don't know. I've only written the one story. I'm still writing it. So I don't have many examples to draw from, but that's just been my experience with this decade-long journey that I've been on.
And Frankie, what do you think?
Well, I mean, one reoccurring theme I keep noticing in my writing as well, there's been a lot of revenge and stuff like that, or justifications. And writing could be almost therapeutic in a way where I've been screwed over a lot in this business of writing and stuff and had projects stolen. So in a way, it's like, well, if I can't make it right in real life, maybe through the story, I can like let out some of that venting and the revenge I actually put into my writing. And I noticed it's been in a couple of my books. So I don't know. I mean, part of you is in there, I believe, maybe to work things out for yourself, through a character, through a story.
Yeah.
I've had the blues too back in the day. I have a stack of poetry, Edgar Allan Poe style, but simplified, like dumbed down because I don't have that kind of vocabulary. But I got a stack of stuff that's kind of creepy. It's like, whoa, I wrote that? Came from somewhere. But
Yeah.
part of you're letting it out there, you're putting it out there, and like I said, it can be therapeutic too through some of these themes to work it out yourself. I mean, that's why I tried the kids' book. I'm like, that's totally different, and I think I achieved it. I got pretty good reviews from people who liked it and stuff. So I'm like, hey, I tried something different. It kind of worked out. I got lucky.
Well, and that's something I think is funny. So for me, I find that I only seem to be able to write when I feel like I have something I need to vent.
Yeah.
If I don't feel like I have something that I need to get off my chest, I will stare at a blank page for hours and be like, I really should write something. I really need to write something right now. And I just stare at it and I'm like, I don't have anything to say. But when I'm struggling or I'm going through something or some, really traumatic thing happens in my life, I can't stop the writing. Like I've actually gone into work and I've had 10 other things I'm supposed to be doing. And it's like, okay, before I can focus on any of these emails or spreadsheets or anything that I need to do, I have to get this out of my head. And I'll end up writing 2 or 3 things that, some are like cues and stuff for me to go back to later. And, full-on poems that I'll write out and be like, all right, I'm going to read this later and I'm going to tweak it, but this is the base idea of what I wanted to say, and then I can get back to work. It's bizarre, I think, because like I said, I write from emotion. So if I don't have a lot of emotion going on, I don't have anything to write.
It's interesting you would say that, Shay, because bringing something from the backstage that we're talking about, when I mentioned Freud and we were talking about Freud, if you look at the after the period when he comes up with the Oedipus complex, he's sort of projecting this neuroses, or what we would call guilt, on the fact that he pretty much wants to consummate a relationship with his sister-in-law. Right. And to do that, he had to project into the science of psychotherapy the idea that all of mankind wants to destroy the primordial father to take the primordial mother. Mm-hmm. And that goes on into his Moses book and into the rest of his work, trying to kind of topple the father, right? And the reason I'm saying that is that guilt played a big part in my early work and my early writing, and I had a problem with anger, an immense problem with anger in my 20s, but it was also an anger that went hand in hand with being controlled by sexuality. And you know what I mean by like having trouble keeping my head in relationships with the provider of thy nookie, so to speak, right? Right. And because if you don't have your faculties about you and you're a virile 25-year-old man, you could be driven kind of nuts by those things, especially when you have a temper. And jealousy can drive you nuts, and your own neuroses at your own jealousy can drive you nuts. And I find when I'm looking back at my old work, and maybe you guys can tell me this when you're looking back at 10, 15-year-old work and looking at that output and going, who the hell was that guy, or in Shay's case, that gal who wrote that? Like, who was that? And I find myself doing that, reading my older work, going, wow, whoever wrote this is nuts and needs help.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know that guy. And to me, I think it was a process of forgiving myself through writing those things down, vomiting them onto paper, confessing them, so to speak.
Yeah.
And other people will read them, and it's like a sort of confession. I mean, do you guys agree with the kind of confession aspect of things?
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, I don't have that body of work to go back on.
I mean, you just started writing, or you got rid of all that stuff?
I started this story sort of, I started writing it about 10 years ago, but I started making it into a proper story to go into a comic book about 5 years ago. And I've just been doing that ever since. I've been doing the art and the writing as well. So I haven't really had time for much of anything else, but surely that must be a really strange experience, especially for someone who's written for decades, to look back and see like, what is this? And people are judging you as a writer based on what you wrote 40 years ago. It must be a strange thing.
Right. Or this, like, for example, like in a journal entry, right? You go back to an old journal when you were maybe 20, 22, and I don't know how old you are now, Michael, and you go, whoa, that's a different consciousness.
Oh, absolutely. It's really, people try and tell you, I'm coming up to 40 now, and people try to tell me, when they were 40, and people who are older than me now try to tell me, like, you have no idea how much you're going to change as a person. And you just, because you're so sure of yourself in your early 20s, you've gotten through that teenage period of kind of figuring out who you are, and you're like, okay, and that's why the young 20-year-olds, they always act like they know everything, because they're for the first time in their life, they kind of know who they are for the first time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing how much you change. It's crazy.
Well, and I think that a lot of it, like, I think 20-year-olds have an idea of who they want to be, and are usually, from what I've seen, they're trying to fake it till they make it to that point. And they know what their end goal is, and they know sometimes they know where they are. They at least know where they came from, and they are trying to figure out how is the best way to get to this point where I'm the person I want to be. And I think that the amount of growth and self-discovery that can come in your early 20s is just immense if you're willing to do the work, and actually to look at yourself and not think that you're perfect and not think you have it all figured out, but actually look at yourself and go, okay, these are the kinds of things that could help me get to that end goal, and then trying them out and seeing how they work. I know the stuff that I had written when I was back in my 20s, when I was struggling and upset, and I was new in the military, and I was moving around constantly, and I was trying to learn a language, and I was trying to learn my job. I was a basket case, and everything I wrote was all like the end of the world, doom and gloom. I'm never going to make it through this. And now I'm sitting here in my mid-30s, and I look back at it, and it's like, I was adorable at 20 because I thought I had the whole world figured out, and I was going to fail, and that was the only thing that would lie ahead of me. So I think that a lot of that, when you start to see your writing, and I look at some of my earlier stuff when I really started to write as an adult, not just as a kid, or as a teenager, a lot of my early stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to find a voice. I'm grasping for a voice. And now I'm starting to solidify what that voice is. And I'm realizing I'm one of those super annoying writers that's always going to write about whatever the hell's going on in my life at the time, because that's what I can draw from. That's what gives me inspiration. And when I'm frustrated, that's what I can go to and say, this is how I wish it was going, not how it is going.
Have you ever heard that? I heard that phrase, write what you know.
Yes.
I mean, that's a great place to start, I think.
I think so too. And I don't think you have to stick with just what you know, because if that were the case, there wouldn't be any fantasy or sci-fi or anything.
Oh, well, I said to start with. You start with.
Right, but that you're exactly right. When you start there, it gives you that like jumping off point. And so you can start to work out what your voice is. And that's kind of where I still am, is trying to figure out exactly what it is I want to say and what I want my writing to say about. And hopefully in another 5 years, I'll have it ironed out enough that I can have like a book that doesn't have to be about the shit show that is my life. It can just be a book about something.
Well, yeah, I have a 2-year-old son. I could write a story about some people out in space, and there's a father who's, having to deal with having young children in space, and I can just draw from all the stuff that you go from, but put it in some strange, different place. It's there has to, having that experience, it has to, give extra weight to whatever you're writing.
or playing on the anxiety of being a father.
Yep.
You know, like you just said, like you just said, like right now you say, okay, I've got my kids near me, but what happens when we're in space, right? With all these extra variables that could happen to interpose themselves between you and your children.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's that going to bring out? What's that going to do to the plot? What's that going to do to the characters? Right? You take a mundane situation like being in your house and then being in outer space, the danger goes up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the feeling that a father is going to have towards perhaps an accident happening to their children is going to go up, and the anxiety and the shared experience of the audience is going to go up, who are parents themselves.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to kind of broach something, because this is something I also talked about last stream, I think, with Shay and Luke. I don't know if we were on stream when we talked about it. I think it's applicable here when I was talking about guilt. I think that sometimes when we're using theme, we can have our characters say things that we ourselves, as the person writing, are not comfortable saying. A perfect example of that comes to mind immediately, and like I said, I mentioned this to Shay last time, is essentially the progenitor of modern horror, which is Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. You know, the original novel Frankenstein, written by Mary Shelley, right? If you look at Mary Shelley, who she was the daughter of William Godwin and her Mary Wollstonecraft. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing her last name. She was the original feminist who had actually tried to commit suicide when she was pregnant with her. And not only that, her husband was a major proponent of the French Revolution in Britain, which was not very popular. And her father had to live through this guilt of having put forth the French Revolution after the terror, right? Of all the stuff that had happened. Mm-hmm. And so Mary Shelley was raised essentially with a Newtonian idea of morality. There's just balls flying around in the ether. There's no such thing as morality. And then this guy, you know, Percy Shelley comes along, who's married, you know, sweeps her off her feet. They go off to a writer's retreat. He cheats on his wife. She ends up, you know, Shelley's wife ends up killing herself, and Mary Shelley's stuck with this guilt. So what does she do? She writes in this retreat, she writes Frankenstein and puts all the morality language into the monster, talking back at the audience and at Frankenstein, who is basically Shelley.
Yeah.
You know, saying the things she can't say because she doesn't understand morality, but for some reason, Frankenstein does. Her creation, not Frankenstein, the monster does. And I think that's interesting that she herself has an intuitive idea of morality, doesn't know it, but does through her creation, essentially. That's what I think is interesting about this idea of maybe confessing, you know, something to your characters.
Well, she was able to explore the idea safely through the modus operandi of the character and the. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I
could.
Muffled.
Hi, Luke.
Okay. Hi, Shay. Hey, Will.
I can totally hear you, but hearing it from a fucked up bunny is just hilarious.
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to modify that mask. I think I'm going to cut the bottom off so I can actually be heard while I'm wearing it. But yeah. What was I saying?
You were saying that it's safe to say it through the monster.
Oh, yeah. She's able to explore ideas that maybe she wouldn't necessarily be able to explore on her own, or if somebody saw her writing in a journal, they'd be worried. But if she explores this through a story, she can actually get the ideas out, look at it from all the different angles, and see it from possibly different perspectives. And
I think it's also, you can have your Enlightenment morality and Christian morality at the same time, even though they're mutually exclusive, right? You can have your cake and eat it too. So you can, in society, you can be an Enlightenment person, you know, with atoms flying everywhere and everything's in flux. But your monster, your creation, can say the things you want to say. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I think that's also very interesting.
I think that happens in our own lives too. I don't know if you've ever been in, say, a Twitter argument or something, maybe on a forum, you're in a discussion, and you've got you're arguing with someone, and then they're throwing points at you, and you know, you realize that maybe you got a few more contradictions in your thinking than you realized you had, and you didn't realize that until you try to write it all down in something.
Yeah.
You can hold things in your head in a kind of abstract way, and it all feels like it fits together. But as soon as you try to formulate an actual argument and get it all down on in words, that sort of stuff, it really comes to the fore, and that's another thing that writing can help you do. You know, you can lock that stuff in, you can crystallize it.
Well, that's interesting you say that, Michael, because like when you're in a forum or you're in a comment section, it's almost like you're talking to a character because you're talking to a screen instead of text.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of talking back at you. And it's interesting that you just said that they can kind of point out your contradictions or your holes in your logic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you can do that internally when you're writing with your characters.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You're fighting with maybe you're fighting some kind of contradiction morally inside yourself, maybe. And it's coming out in a good conflict with your characters. It sort of reminds me of the Brothers Karamazov. Remember that?
Not familiar with that.
Dostoevsky, you know, he has two different. He has the,
Okay.
you know, that's exactly what that book is about. It's atheism and Christianity talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Two sides of Dostoevsky, and it's fascinating to read. You know what I mean? Because he's Iron Man's both sides, because he is Iron Man in both sides inside of himself.
Mm-hmm.
So that comes out in the writing as a great conflict because they are two immovable objects bashing into each other.
Absolutely. Yeah,
that's how you know a subject, if you can argue the point of the other side and be able to argue it effectively.
And maybe that's a way that you know that your character is a fully fleshed out character and a real person if two of your characters and they can really go at each other and point out each other where each other are going wrong and exist in a real way, like you would with arguing someone on a forum who does have a completely different worldview.
And I think that forum template is really a really cool idea to apply to maybe a conflict between two characters, dialogue-wise, because you've got two fully formed people who are not going to back down.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And how do you write that? Two people who are not going to back down and won't back down because they're fighting over a matter of principle.
Well, so something that I think is actually kind of interesting, and we had this when I had Mike on, who just joined us. So we now have Mike.
Congratulations on your book. I mean, that looks badass. The Achilles book.
Thanks, man.
So when we were talking, he was talking about if you ever want to know about Greek mythology, this is your dude. It is obnoxious how much he knows. But we were talking about things like Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships and all that kind of stuff. And he actually brought about a side that I had never heard, because everything that I had always heard was basically this some dumb bitch that's just I'm so amazing, y'all should go to war for me. And then that's what happened. But when you talk to Mike, he talks about there's
a whole chapter in the Iliad about it.
Exactly.
There's a whole chapter where Helen is, and I mentioned in our video that it's one of the worst chapters in the book because it makes Priam look like the biggest dumbass on the face of the planet. Because the whole thing is it's a giant exposition dump, so that you can get to know the leaders of the Greek army. And so it's Priam, who is the king of this city that's been under siege for 10 years, going who are all these guys? And, well, that doesn't make for a particularly great leader. But during this, Helen's going through and is introducing all of the Greek leaders and what have you to Priam, pointing them out on the battlefield. And in the meantime is also talking about how horrible of a person she is for all of this going on. And several points in the Iliad, she tries to leave the city and tries to go back to the Greek army. And is essentially stopped by Hector, who tells her, "Go back to my brother and make him stop being a bitch."
Exact quote.
I dig these cliff notes.
That's what it is. She tries to go because she's tired of seeing people fight and die for her. And Hector's just my countrymen have literally sacrificed their lives to protect your silly adulterous ass. Go back to my brother. He's not doing his job. Make him do his job. And when you go into, we were talking a bit about, character complexities and what have you. This is something that I really enjoy about the classical time period of men. It's something that I had a really fun time playing with my story, is that all of the characters in the Iliad, except Paris, are heroic. They all demonstrate heroic traits and what have you. But none of them are perfect. You know, Hector is probably the nicest guy in the cast of the Iliad, but he also is the worst fighter of everyone that you see. Hector gets into like 6 fights in the Iliad, and he loses all of them. The best that he gets out with is I think he has a tie with Ajax at one point.
He's no Diomedes.
No, he is no
Diomedes.
Diomedes is the shit. The only person in the Iliad that makes Diomedes look like a chump is Achilles, and there's a reason for that. He earned the title Best of the Greeks for a reason. And that's something that I even talk about. Like, you know, Achilles is the best of the Greeks. He's this person that is this killing machine, but he's also got this uncontrollable rage that makes him horrifying. The whole point of the first half of the Iliad is he throws a temper tantrum over losing Briseis. And so he has his mom, an immortal goddess.
Yeah, for 12 books, he's gone.
Yeah, he comes back around midway through.
He's gone for literally 12 books. He's like not in the story.
Yeah, like he's off chilling. He's straight up. He tells Zeus, make the Greeks lose, make them beg for me to come back. And then, you know what's funny is they do come back to beg Achilles, but by this point, Achilles has gotten to get something that he was never supposed to have, and it's the downfall of his character, and it's the thing that gets Patroclus killed, is he starts to understand what it is to live a life of peace, and he becomes attached to those things. And so Odysseus brings Briseis back and brings Phoenix, Achilles' old advisor from one of his tutors growing up, and they beseech him to come back. They beg him. And he says no. The thing that really pushes Achilles over the edge is Patroclus, his lover and companion, talks to him and says, people are dying out there. Hector is reaching the ships. And Patroclus, who is also a very big warrior, but is known for having a bit more of a gentle disposition, says, screw your pride. I'm going, like, if you need to maintain your pride, fine. Let me wear your armor. Let me lead the Myrmidons. Let me turn the tide. That way, you get to have your cake and eat it too. You know, you get to be known as the person that drove back Hector. You get all the accolades for that, and on top of that, you don't have to sully yourself by crawling back to Agamemnon. You didn't actually come to his aid. I helped. But you get it all. You get the satisfaction of knowing you never helped out Agamemnon, and they get the hero that they need in you. And so Achilles agrees, and he tells Patroclus, "You can do this, but make sure that you don't drive the moment that they leave the Greek camp. You stop there. Don't go after them to the walls of Troy." And so Patroclus agrees to do this, but in the heat of battle, he gets so excited. Patroclus is a warrior. He gets taken up by the thrill of the fight, and he pushes beyond the Greek camp, and he goes to the walls of Troy, and then he's killed. And this is this is something that is a big driving factor of Achilles' character. And it's something that I feel that most, even classicists, miss out on, is, when Patroclus dies, Hector strips him of Achilles' armor and wears it. And when they have their encounter in the last books of the Iliad, when Achilles chases Hector around the walls of Troy 10 times, when they fight for that big duel, which isn't really a duel, it's a massacre, because this is Achilles we're talking about. Achilles isn't killing Hector, he's killing himself. Hector is wearing Achilles' old armor. He is wearing the active embodiment of everything that got his best friend and the person that he loved more than anything in the world killed. And this is a story about this man's rage. The opening of the Iliad is, "Hear me, O Muse, sing to me of the rage of the son of Peleus, the rage of Achilles," and how it was the bane of so many men, Greek and Trojan alike. the death of Patroclus is the climactic moment of the Iliad, and the thing that settles the falling action is the death of Hector, which is also consequently the death of Achilles, because the prophecy of him was that he would die young, but he would die the moment he killed Hector. He knew going into Troy that so long as he didn't fuck with Hector, he'd be fine. And this was him giving himself his death sentence. And so these are the things that I really like to play with writing, is you got these very complex characters, and it's a good time because I get to play with it, but a lot of the hard work's done for me. I can't make that more complex than it is.
So, well, Mike, that brings up a good question, because you summarized the Iliad very well, but why the Iliad for you?
Oh man,
what theme are you bringing to it from Mike that's not there in Homer?
I bring it to me. Achilles' journey in my story is the battle of his inner demons, the person that he wants to be versus the person he's been his entire life. I think that it's a pretty common thing that people have aspirations for who they want to be, the things that they want to do, and every now and again they have this little demon on their shoulder that is constantly whispering in their ear, and every now and again we get that impulse to make the wrong decision, and it's caused by that, and it sets us back from moving forward. And this is kind of Achilles' big thing throughout our journey. So like Elysian Fields is this tournament in the underworld where he's fighting all these really crazy people from across the world that are different caliber of fighter than he's ever dealt with, and he's overcoming them, right? He has his goal of what he wants to achieve, but the hound of glory, the thing that got him to die in the first place, the thing that he ruined his life for, starts to rear its ugly head, because the thrill of the fight, he is an addict to the glory, and the moment that he starts to feel this again, there becomes a pull. What does he want? Does he still want this thing, the thing that's really what probably the best for him, or does he want to keep fighting?
Interesting.
You just reminded me that I have not read this shit in like 8 years. Thanks, man.
It must be 20 years.
Like everyone's
it's still fresh in my mind. I'm actually have to read it on a daily basis. So
that was my whole thing. This story is very personal for me. My dad read me the Iliad as my bedtime story growing up. I had this very pretty watercolor illustrated version of the Iliad, and it was my bedtime story. That was the thing. And as I grew up, it became this thing that like every from middle school through most of undergrad, I would read the Iliad once a year. There's a reason why I'm able to quote parts of it. My
bedtime story was sit down, shut the fuck up, and go to sleep. That was my bedtime story.
Damn.
Like, yep, that sounds good, Mom. Thanks.
Yeah, but my bedtime story
I at least got the Chronicles of Narnia.
No, my dad just said, "Are you still here?"
Oh man!
Oh, look at you, Frankie. What?
I got the combo.
I can't remember who mine is over there on the shelf. I can't see it from here.
If you give me a second, I'll go grab mine. I actually have like 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Go for it, Mike. Like I said, if you ever want to know anything about Greek mythology, Mike is your dude.
You weren't joking, Shay. You weren't joking.
Dude, our stream, when we had him on, our stream went for so long because he just started talking about all of this stuff, and I was like,
I mean,
tell me more.
The Iliad is really difficult to read in English, in my opinion, because it doesn't really sound good in our meter.
Because it wasn't constructed. Yeah, no. It wasn't constructed in our language.
It sounds beautiful in Greek, but it just sounds off in English. Mm-hmm. Because mostly them repeating, like, for example, you're going to hear the word strong grieved Achilles and Achaeans over and over, the same words over and over again, because you got to fill the meter, you know?
Hey, Mike, can I, instead of reading that, can I just watch the Brad Pitt movie? Is that all right?
You're going to set me off, man. But so this is the copy my dad read me, and I'm going to show you one page from it. God, there's so many good things in here. Give me a sec. We're going to go with the scene where Hector gets dragged behind the chariot. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that would have gotten me as a kid.
Oh.
Yeah, and this is Achilles putting on the god armor. Actually, no, we'll go with him fighting the Scamander. I love this one.
Nice.
Jeez. It's just so pretty.
Yeah, no, like this was my book growing up. Every single time that my dad was SF, and so he would be gone for a few months at a time. And so whenever he came home, this was the book, and it would be that one without fail. And it wouldn't even be like the whole thing. It would be like, I want to read this part right here. And it was usually the scenes where Hector got his ass kicked by Achilles, which. It's funny because Michael Bancroft mentioned, should I watch the Brad Pitt Troy? And oh man,
Triggered.
Do you not recommend?
He actually reminds me.
Never seen it. Never seen it.
This is a trigger that I have with literally every single adaptation that they have done of this. None of them have done it right. But every single time that they have Achilles versus Hector, it's this big, massive duel. And that's just not the case. Hector shows up initially and faces off with Achilles, throws his spear at him, it misses, and then realizes that he's fucked. And so Achilles chases him around the city 10 times.
I like it.
Actively different gods try to intervene to prevent Achilles from killing Hector. And Apollo disguises himself as the guy that killed Nestor's kid. And so Achilles chases after him for a bit and then realizes he's been tricked and then goes back to chasing Hector. And just without, this guy runs out of no energy. And throughout this entire chase of Hector, he kills so many people that he pisses off a river god, fights the river god to a draw, gets taken out of the river by Hephaestus, continues chasing Hector again, gets distracted by Apollo, goes back to chasing Hector again. And then finally, after chasing him around the city 10 times, Athena disguises herself as Hector's brother Deiphobus and says, you should face Achilles. And so then Hector has the balls to do it, turns around, throws another spear, and then it's just hey, brother, hand me your... And then notices there's no one there and is okay, I'm doomed. And then he tries to make a pact with Achilles. And this is where my favorite line of the Iliad comes in. Hector begs Achilles that tries to strike this pact that no matter who wins, that the body will be given back to their families for funeral rites and everything like that. That will be mercy to whoever loses, not necessarily by mercy of life, but by mercy of treatment. And Achilles gives the most savage comeback of all time, and it's not made it in fucking anything, and it upsets me. There are no pacts between lions and men.
I like that.
His immediate reply. And he tells Hector that
drink to that.
He tells Hector, my dogs are going to be I am going to sick my dogs upon your corpse. Vultures are going to feast on your eyes. Your body will know everything. He's straight up Achilles is vicious and he's angry. He's really angry. This man took and it's funny because Hector delivered the killing blow, but Hector didn't get to Patroclus until he had been knocked off the wall of Troy by Apollo, and he got hit in the side by an arrow. He just delivered the final blow. He didn't even freaking fight Patroclus. He just killed him. This man barely had anything to do with this outside of delivering, honestly, a mercy to Patroclus, and Achilles doesn't give a shit. Achilles just wants this man dead. This is this is revenge. This is self-loathing. This is everything, and that's why the big meeting with Priam comes to beg for his son's life, for his son's body back, and Achilles breaks down because he realizes that this was never about Hector at all. This was about his own anger toward himself. Mm-hmm. And he throws Priam a banquet and sets up a truce for 10 days so that both Patroclus and Hector can get full funeral rites. Hector can be celebrated by his city. Patroclus can be mourned by the man who loved him the most.
Oh, dude, you get so deep with this shit.
It's kind of funny that he would bring up the Iliad and go into this long discussion of it, because if you've read the Iliad, you know that gods play an active role in it. They play an overriding role in it. And as we were just talking about between the three of us before Luke and Mike came in, we were talking about theme as kind of a forum to work out morality sometimes, or to ask yourself philosophical questions. Now, the thing about the Iliad that's very interesting is that it is a product of an age in Greece where they had no idea of an ultimate reality of morality yet. Philosophy hadn't been really born yet, right?
No, it predated all of that.
When you have gods walking around and you don't have the characters in the story in charge of their own actions, the gods are in charge of their actions. I
would actually
sort of being bounced around by the gods.
I would disagree with that.
Why so?
Because in Greek mythology, the role of gods is not to control mankind.
No, I didn't say control. They're personifications of superlative values, or superlative.
That is true, because like that's the whole thing, is that the Greek pantheon are representations of the best things in their cultures. But like,
I wouldn't say that. No, I wouldn't say that.
That's how they saw them. Gods are meant to be revered, feared, and respected and loved.
It's supposed to be the pinnacle.
Feared, respected. I wouldn't say loved. That's going a little far.
I mean, you can't argue. Like,
let's explain the atheism of the Greek philosophers here. I mean, there's a reason why they became atheists.
That's a much different. Like you can't compare the age of Greek philosophers to the age of early Bronze era and Homeric era Greece.
Right, but they're the inheritors of Mycenaean Greece.
Absolutely. It's just like that. Like, to me, when you look at the Iliad, you especially have to look at through that mindset, because these the gods can't. The gods, while they are interfering in the Iliad, even though they're not supposed to, there are lines that they cannot cross. Zeus tries to go down there and save his son Sarpedon from being killed by Patroclus. And Hera tells him, "You can't do that. He's fated to die. You can't fuck with fate." Mm-hmm. And Zeus backs off because he knows that if he tries to do that, he'll be in big shit. Like Hera was pissed because she wanted to go save someone earlier, and Zeus gave her the same speech. And so when he was about to do it was like, I'll screw you over just as you were intending to screw me over. Like, and that's the thing, is that the gods are, as much as they are gods, they are reflections of what we are as people as well. Because we were like kind of formed in their image and what have you.
Or the gods are projections of our image. I'd say they're
potato.
I'd say they're bad ideations of morality.
Yes, no, and I would agree with that. But like that, at the end of the day, that's how they were seen. Like, there's a reason why, you have the gods getting involved in all these petty squabbles.
They are petty.
Yeah, no, like that's exactly what it. I'm not sure if anyone here has read Lore Olympus, but it's a really fun way to get introduced to all of the kind of shenanigans that you could expect from the Olympian pantheon, where it's like everybody's fighting over something. Usually somebody screwed somebody else that they probably shouldn't have, and that's literally all Greek mythology. Like, literally, like, it's funny watching things like Hercules, and you see Disney's Hercules, and you see Zeus being this really caring and awesome dad, and I'm just like, No.
I always found that funny too.
The point I was trying to make, Mike, maybe you misunderstood me, was that there's no ultimate reality governing the gods. They do what they want when they want.
I did.
They can't violate their own rules.
Well, they can, and this is where the Euthyphro problem comes from. If you know that dialogue from Plato, right? Is it good because the gods love it, or is it good because it's good, right? And that's kind of what I meant when we were talking about.
No, I did
talking back at itself.
I do think that, like, obviously, like as you said, this is a really deeper a much deeper thing, and you're correct. I did misunderstand what you were saying there, but it's just a really fun thing to talk about when it comes down to the themes and what have you. And the
Iliad is an ultimate example of theme. It's the Greeks talking back at themselves in terms of what their values are, trying to figure it out.
That's why the Iliad is better than the Odyssey. That's right. Shots fired.
I mean, well, actually, it's funny that you bring up the Odyssey, because now we have a transition in Greek thought, right? Instead of a warrior tribe, you're now getting into warrior tribe plus sacred city plus thinking.
Yeah.
Right. That's what the Odyssey really is. It's a transition in Greek thought.
Yes, agreed. That and a shameless self-promotion of Odysseus.
Well, that's what the Greeks became.
Yeah, I know.
They went from warrior tribe, like I said, fighting each other in front of Troy,
fighting each other to being this very thoughtful and political beings. Yes, no, you're absolutely correct. And I do like the Odyssey. It's still a very fun book. I just also, from my love of the Iliad, I have a grudge against Odysseus. So it's just
everyone has a grudge against Odysseus. I had a list for
that's kind of his thing.
Go off on Odysseus. How he's an evil white male.
Piece of shit. Like the big gripe that I have with Odysseus is, and as a fellow Diomedes fan, I'm sure that you will understand this as well.
Do you have that section in your book, the Diamedon? Do you have that where he breaks out and goes crazy?
Please, of course I do. You're talking about the entire chapter called Diomedes Rages Against the Gods, where he fights like 3 gods in a day and then kills a whole bunch of people, and the Trojans are like running to Hector and be like, this guy's fucking nuts. We didn't fear Achilles.
He goes in the god mode and like starts beating the shit out of everyone.
Yeah. Well, like it helps when you have Athena on your shoulder, but I mean, hey, whatever.
Check out Mike's.
This sounds an awful lot like the first God of War game,
dude.
Because it is.
Like that's what the character is. He's just this vicious, angry man.
Right. That's literally what I'm hearing.
But the big thing the big problem I had though is there's this section in the book where Diomedes comes up with this plan. He approaches the council. They've been getting a bit of an ass kicking, and so Diomedes is like, we need to win. We need a W, something fierce. I suggest that we send out a 2-man reconnaissance team to, like, it looks like the Trojans are getting reinforcements. We should send out a 2-man reconnaissance team and figure out what's going on. And Odysseus is the only person in the council that thinks that this is a bad idea. And so Diomedes, upon getting this cleared, says, okay, cool, I want Odysseus to come with me. He's the most critical of my plan, which means that he's going to be waiting for it to mess up. And 2 sets of eyes are better than 1. And so they go out, and they end up finding out that the king of Thrace has shown up with his allies. And so they kill the king of Thrace and set fire to his camp and take his prized horses and chariot and get back. And Odysseus takes all the credit.
What a prick.
Yeah, piece of shit. Fuck that guy.
To put it bluntly.
There's actually something I want to ask the group, the panel, about theme. I'm curious of your thoughts about this, because this is something more contemporary, and I want to hear all of your thoughts. Now we're getting kind of to where we see something like a New Warriors, right? Where you have essentially what is not theme but sentimentality. You have a group of people who are projecting their let's say categories of their mind, right, onto the rest of us, and kind of doing therapy and including us in the misery of it, right? Where do you think the line is between sentimentality, which is propaganda, and genuine theme?
I see what you did. You're an awful person. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just noticed that he made his.
You didn't notice that? I've been trying to point it out to you.
No, I didn't.
I've been trying to tell you that everything you're saying about me is wrong. I wasn't the fighter that you're putting me up as. I had a team of stunt doubles working with me on the battlefield.
Oh, man. I was like there was something that was catching my eye.
Look
off
at my
that corner
face.
too. I hadn't noticed it, and then
Look at my beautiful face.
Barb,
Does this
Barb
look like
brought
the face of a man who would put himself in harm's way?
We're in the same period, Barb, but that's Theseus.
Holy
Oh,
shit.
goodness.
I've had just enough of this that all of this is hilarious to me.
But what do you guys think? Do you think there's a line between propaganda and theme?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
And-
I think that the moment that narrative becomes corrupted by, okay, starting over, I feel that art is a form of expression. You are going to end up with political, philosophical, and everything beliefs projected in through art because that's natural, right? As writers, we project how we feel. You know, Shay mentioned earlier that she doesn't feel like writing unless she has something to say, which reminded me of this great quote from the Magicians, where magic only comes from pain, right? The same thing with creativity. You write because you feel about it, whether it's good, bad, and different. Like you write because you have feelings on it. So those things bleeding in isn't necessarily bad so long as it serves a narrative, so long as it serves structure, character-driven narrative. The problem is that the majority of the people that are doing it right now, that are just, I'm going to say quote unquote doing it right now, they aren't actually doing anything like that. They're not writing about something that they feel about. They're writing about something that think that they believe in because that's what they're being pushed to put out. And it's not an honest form of expression when there is no narrative, when there is no structure, when these characters are about as have the depth of a sheet of paper.
When they're just didactic, when they're just talking at you?
Like it sucks because like I see characters like Kamala Khan, who the first trade paper of her book I really liked. I felt that it was an honest expression of what it might feel like to be a teenage Islamic American girl who is having this struggle between her cultural identity as a Muslim and an American in New Jersey, right? Now, you don't see any of that, not from what I've read. You see this girl that's got everything under control, and it's a shame because you can continue conflict. There's a show on Netflix, I think it's called Never Have I Ever, and one of the big recurring themes there is, you know, they're Hindi, and like her cousin has an arranged marriage, but she's dating someone. And she loves that person. She wants to be with them. And she's terrified about coming forward about it because of the implications of being ostracized by her family. But you would never see that in a modern Kamala Khan book because they're too afraid of pointing out something like that very much exists. Having dating Muslim girls in the past and having had our relationship broken up because their parents found out about it. Like, they don't focus on these real problems that could make them very good characters because they're afraid of offending somebody. Now you're getting into, you're not going to point out the faults with somebody's religious structure because it could cause an issue. But that's no longer art. You're not providing an honest form of expression. You're just trying to put somebody up on a pedestal because of their cultural identity without addressing the problems that come with it from a continuity standpoint.
God forbid you'd ever have a little bit of conflict in some fiction. That would be a shame.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
It's
Michael,
not like Spider-Man wasn't made a great character off of that for years.
So, Michael, what do you think about this line between propaganda and theme? You know, but that's truth or sentimentality?
I think that I don't.
No, Michael Bancroft. Sorry.
I'm
Hector.
sorry.
No,
Sorry,
Achilles.
Michael. I'll
Achilles.
say Mike and Michael.
Call me Achilles.
Okay.
Brad Pitt. Brad.
Brad Pitt, you have the floor.
Brad Pitt. Yeah. I'm thinking. Did you guys ever see that movie Zootopia?
No.
Yes. Great.
Yes.
Yeah. So Zootopia. I mean, that probably went the furthest that I can think of in mainstream movie going. You know, what is it? A Pixar movie or something? It probably went right up to the line. It walked right up to the line of getting preachy and propagandist, but it did it really well what it did, basically, you got a bunch of animals, and it got into some really, really heavy themes. Racial prejudice and what tribalism and all that sort of stuff. The different kinds of animals, I guess, were metaphors for different races or something like that. And look, it's I think as long as they're not as long as there's honesty in the story, it's coming from a genuine place, you can walk right up to the line. But like what Mike was saying there earlier, when it just becomes it starts off as just a pamphleteering exercise, then you're coming at it from the wrong side. You want to start, I guess, from the story side of things rather from the propaganda side. And if you do want your theme to be that overt, not everyone does. I know my theme, you probably wouldn't even notice it unless you were looking for it until you're really deep into the story. But in a movie like Zootopia, it's right there from the get-go. You can see it. Any adult will be out watching the movie will be able to see it straight away. It's I know someone else can continue on.
Well,
from there.
so
Okay,
because I'm a giant child, I've watched Zootopia like a bajillion times, and I love it. The thing that I think is really interesting about it is there's a lot of kids shows that go way too fucking far with that kind of thing, whereas Zootopia it showed you from a perspective of this super eager bunny rabbit that was going to do all these amazing great things, and it kind of showed you multiple themes throughout it. So it showed you this I'm going to achieve everything in the world character and the harsh reality of what is actually going to happen. It doesn't matter how amazing and great and wonderful you want to be at your job. It matters people's perception of you too. That plays a big part. And so that knocked her down a peg. It also showed when push came to shove, just how a lot of your unknown can affect how you present yourself, because there was that whole scene where she's sitting here and she's talking about predator versus prey, and she's talking about, well, all of these predator characters, yes, they are predominantly predators that are coming after us, and what she's really saying, because of her positional authority, is that predators are something that we need to be worried about, and prey needs to be the ones that put a lockdown on that. And it was really, really big concepts for small kids, but it was done in a way that was very real. And it showed a character who realized when her positional authority got way out of hand and ended up putting out a message that she didn't intend. And her initial response was, I'm just going to pull myself completely out of it. I'm going to walk away from it all. And that wasn't the right response, because pulling yourself away from it when you're the one that was the voice, it doesn't change how anyone felt. All it does is tell them that you were run out of your position. And so over time, she realizes this. She goes back and apologizes, and to her predator friend, and then they kind of go back and she shows like predators aren't bad. It's that this is what was made to look a certain way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it showed a lot of these real world issues with animals and in a predator prey sense. But if you really look at it, it's the same as, when you start looking at like celebrity worship and people that are perceived power and people that are perceived importance versus the general population, and how they can seem like they're the big baddies and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we're all on the same playing field. We're all people, and it's all dependent on what we do as people. That's what we should be judged as. And that's what I ended up taking away from Zootopia. And that's something that if I had children and I was watching it with those kids, that would be something that I would want to discuss with them. But it was something that approached it in a way that was really simplified and a lot easier for, I think, a younger generation to kind of understand and to start forming those opinions. So I think that there's a way that you can do it where it doesn't become propaganda, where it isn't like, I'm telling you this is how it has to be, but it, like, they showed somebody who unintentionally took missteps and unintentionally caused harm that they they didn't want to ever have happen, but they didn't realize that their position allowed that to be a thing. And then they had to go back and say, okay, because of the position that I hold, I have to take extra care when I say things. That's like something I have to do in the military. I can't ever say, because I am Air Force X, Y, and Z, that's how I get fired. Like
that would be
Right.
it's not OPSEC. I'm blanking on what the term is, but yeah, you're not allowed to promote your opinion as a service member.
No. And it's a really, really important thing, because if I say something and I'm wearing my uniform and I'm saying that this is how the U.S. Air Force feels about things, I'm representing an entire population of people. I'm not just representing me. It's no longer Shay. It's the entirety of the United States Air Force. And at some points, it's the entirety of the United States military, or the U.S. in general, because I have perceived power or status based on what my job is.
Hey, Shay, I have a question. Like, and when I asked the panel this is because we've been discussing Homer, we've discussed Utopia, Frankenstein, but what we seem to have here in the difference between propaganda and a true morality play is directionality. What I mean by that is, could we say that we know it's propaganda when it's a monolithic voice speaking at the audience, as opposed to voices speaking within themselves, within the story? Like we said, Frankenstein's monster talking to Frankenstein, the Greeks kind of trying to figure out what morality is by the interplay of themselves with the gods, with this Zootopia about walking right up to the line of talking to themselves, but not quite talking to the audience, right? And telling them what they should be doing. So do you think the question here is directionality? If it's talking to the audience, straight propaganda. If it's talking amongst itself within the story, it's trying to work something out that we're all party to.
I think that's an excellent allegory for it.
I think that's a good way to put it. I think that when you're talking to the population that surrounds within the story, it's a lot harder for it to be propaganda unless you have something that is blatantly, this is what the vast majority of people are going to think, and this is why I'm telling you that that's wrong. Unless you have those two characters that exist, I think having kind of a cross section of what a lot of culture is, having like all of these people are going to raise these questions. It's like that moment in Zootopia where she's being pegged and they're saying, so are you saying that it's only predators that are doing this? And she goes, well, it has been predators. There haven't been anyone afraid. She doesn't realize that predators are the problem because of the position that she holds. And then she backtracks that later. I don't feel like that's propaganda. I feel like that is highlighting something that actually happens within the world. But if it was, this is, I'm telling you that this is wrong, and I'm telling you why. Yeah,
the screen is talking to the audience, or the comic is talking to the audience,
and I think that Zootopia was honestly one of the perfect things to be bringing up for this, because Zootopia is an excellent example of something that I feel that in the comic industry that has honestly hurt it, is the fact that Zootopia was written by people that knew that the main market for this product was going to be children. And so they made something that would be able to be that would be able to serve this higher message of trying to spread awareness on something that would be able to be consumed and appreciated by a younger audience and their parents.
Yeah.
When you're an adult and you have I've got my 2-year-old son. I remember when I saw Zootopia with my wife for the first time. We watched it and our mind was blown. We're like, wow, they handled some really heavy hitting stuff in here in a way that didn't feel like I was having this shoved down my throat. That's really impressive.
You weren't being lectured,
right? So the directionality.
I've never seen the movie, so I'm just going based off what you guys are saying.
Yeah,
there's nothing ham-fisted in it. It's all woven really very cleverly. Very carefully, and with that duality in mind that you were speaking of, Mike, with, it's a layered film. So the kids are watching one film and the adults are watching another film at the same time.
Yeah.
It was just really well done. And it's when they start... Yeah, that old thing. And when they start to ham-fist stuff...
by the way.
What's that?
I was the comment. Sorry, Mike. I was thinking the same thing that Gabe just said, but please go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, when they start to ham-fist stuff, when it feels forced, when it becomes pandering, blatant tokenism, that's when the audience is pulled out of the story And in that moment, there's no option of watching two characters in a story. You are, by nature of being ripped out of the story, now being lectured to by the story.
Yeah,
So
Right.
That's when it becomes propaganda.
It's funny
That's when
up,
it becomes propaganda. Propaganda tells you what to think. It doesn't give you information and then allow you to think for yourself. Propaganda tells you this is what you will think, or else.
Well, so specifically looking at Wall-E, right? I had to turn Wall-E off. And this is coming from somebody who loves like that kind of animation and those kind of kid shows and stuff like that. I could not, for the life of me, get through Wall-E. I tried 3 separate times. All 3 times, it put me to sleep.
Oh, it was boring, or what was going on?
No, it isn't that it's boring. It's that it literally it takes the idea of a theme or a lesson learned, and it bashes you over the head with it with a very heavy rock for like 2.5 hours. It's just
you mean that that's not how you enjoy to consume your media or your lesson? Oh man, we need to get somebody a memo on that, because
it was wicked pleasant for a lecture.
Well, even as a lecture, because it didn't even make points that I felt were worth making, because everything that it said basically was that humans as a whole, we are evil, horrible creatures, and the only thing that is ever going to happen by us being alive is the world is going to die. That is all that it ever said.
They're talking at you.
Exactly.
And Mike and Brad Pitt brought this up. It's to say Brad Pitt from now on. So Brad brought this up where he said about a token, right? Where you say, instead of saying, okay, what does it feel like to be the only, say, black man in a whole group of white people? I mean, what does that feel like, and how does that person interact, right? What's interesting about that interaction? What does that say? As opposed to, hey guys, we have this guy here, and you must, in all quadrants of life, have a token. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? The difference is.
Yeah.
And that's and I think that's a big core problem. And we're talking about preaching politics versus establishing a political narrative. And I think that a big proponent to this were writers like Alan Moore in the 80s, where you had this guy that was super talented and had crazy political philosophies of his own, but he wrote good stories. Why are Watchmen and V for Vendetta as well known as they are? Like, yeah, they have some pretty crazy political attachments to them, but they're good books. They're great stories. Like V for Vendetta is practically a glorification of domestic terrorism. Like,
basically,
V is a terrorist, but he's a fantastic character, and the reason why it is as a compelling book as it is because of the character dynamic he has with Evie in establishing, oh, well, yeah, he's a terrorist, but look at what the government's doing. This is Orwellian 1984 kind of situation. Who's really the bad guy here? And so it creates a dynamic. It creates a character. It creates character growth. It creates narrative. And that's why V for Vendetta is good. But then you have things like the Mark Waid's Captain America run that happened back in 2017, where it started off really fun, where it was this whole thing where Captain America was going around the country trying to unmess his reputation from Secret Empire, and then he gets over. Yeah, everyone's eyes rolled. And then he gets shot into the future, and all of a sudden is fighting a unironically short, misfigured, blonde hair wig, orange-skinned troll thing is the bad guy. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go into, I'm not a huge fan of the current administration. We're not going to go into that because that's not the point. But that's not what this book's yes, Captain America is a political book. It's always been. It started with 2 Jewish kids having a guy in a red, white, and blue American flag punching a world leader on the face right after he got named Man of the Year. We weren't in war with Germany yet. It's always going to be a politically natured book, but you don't. You you have to have more subtle. You have to have more subtlety than that.
Right.
You would think Mark Waid of all fucking people. Dude, to have just a
Michael, it's
bit
funny
more
that
subtlety.
I've been sitting here for the last 20 minutes trying to figure out how I can get V for Vendetta into this discussion. So I'm so happy that you brought it up. Because,
Hell yeah.
Dude, like that's honestly, whenever anybody talks about politics and comic books, I have some serious issues with Alan Moore as a person for his own views, in particular on superhero books.
He's a right grumpy bastard, he is.
Yes, he is, and I don't like it, and I think that he's a bit hypocritical in how he talks about superhero books, as they are actively what made his career.
He's pissed, dude. He's pissed. The superhero genre fucked him hard, man. He's jaded, you know?
I understand being pissed at the corporate side of things, but that's not these characters' fault. And these characters stand for a lot of things for a lot of people. I remember when Alan Moore made that the statement about superheroes are all childish. The same, like within a week of that, I remember reading an article about a girl who read All-Star Superman and it saved her freaking life and got her to push forward in her own life because of the scene of Superman taking the time to stop a girl from jumping off a building.
Yeah, that was the Grant Morrison and Frank Whiteley run, right?
Yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like these characters mean things to people. And so if you're going to use them to tell a politically natured story, if you're going to use them to do that, that's fine. But you have to be clever about it. And you have to have it happen in a way that's A, organic to them as characters, and B, is a narratively driven thing.
X-Men God Loves, Man Kills.
Bingo.
Perfect example of that.
Yeah, no,
Chris Claremont told both sides, and he fleshed out both sides of the argument. You know?
X-Men Magneto Testament.
Hey, hey guys, I want to see what Frankie thinks about all this. You haven't spoken in like an hour, so what do you think, man? You got to have
jumping on here and just hijacking everything and talking.
You have to recap. I stepped away for a second. What happened? What are we up to?
Well, I mean, what do you think about it? I mean, that fine line between propaganda and sentimentality and actual theme, actually resonance, that actually is truth. What do you think?
About how people react to it, or could they see it's propaganda? Could they, or does it depend on the individual if they see it's propaganda or something else? Or,
I mean, do you think there's a fine line between the two, or do you think there's a big gap?
fine line. Well, I was just wondering, like, what if somebody saw a read a book or saw a project, and could it be to the individual too, the person like taking in the information? Like, does someone think it's propaganda, and then someone thinks it's just a theme or something less? Like, could it be just on the individual themselves how they take in the information, or just putting that out there?
I mean, I think there's some truth in that, because going back to what Mike just said, Elysian Fields, Mike.
Yes. You can just call me Odin. I've been going.
It's okay. Odin. It's a story with Odin and Brad. Odin. He said that, you know, there's always going to be personal politics in books. I'm sorry, there always is, because if you live in a city or in a nation, you're going to be dealing with politics. I mean, it's as old as Aristotle when he declared it, right? Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. I think this goes to what Frankie just said. If you're declaring a category of mind, does it map onto a category of reality? Because politics are a category of mind. So is there something in reality that validates? Is it a fact that resonates with people? And I think you can do politics, you can do morality, if the category of mind maps on somewhat to the experience of the reader. I mean, meaning that they can see it in their reality.
Does it add verisimilitude to the story that you're telling? Like, does it make the story real? Is it necessary to actually tell the truth? When you're telling a story, you have to tell the truth.
It makes it applicable, because sometimes you're telling the truth despite yourself. We talked.
Even if you don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah, like we talked about with Frankenstein, right? You're telling the truth despite yourself.
Sure. And I feel that's the big separator, is that, like, and you already touched on it, like, politics in a story are fine so long as it's a conversation within the characters in the story. Mm-hmm. The moment that it feels like a character is having an aside, talking to the audience, and is like pointing that, like, you've probably, everyone here's seen that panel where you've got that one superhero and he's looking right out in that super close-up panel with his finger pointed out Uncle Sam style and is giving you the biggest soapbox nonsense on the face of the planet. Like,
I've read a webcomic once where I thought I was reading a story about a person who makes costumes for superheroes. I thought, wow, that's a really cool premise. And I got like 3 episodes in, and then literally at one point, a character stands up on the coffee table in front of everyone, just unprovoked, looks straight at the camera, and just goes on a massive monologue about trans rights. It's like bang right in your face. It was really brilliantly written until that point too.
That's what you want as a consumer, Brad Pitt. Don't you tell me it's not.
I know. So I wrote a comment. I'm like,
was there anything leading up to it, or was it just
nothing?
right in the middle?
It was a paid advertisement, you know. Just all of a
I was
sudden,
like,
right in the
I
middle of
thought
the
I
book.
was reading a thing here about this interesting premise, and yeah, a lot of people agree with me and we're like, what the hell's going on? But then you get the normal people saying, oh, you hate trans people. Like, whoa. I was sold one thing here. And then all of a sudden, once you already had me hooked in, she literally jumped up onto a coffee table and just kind of looked straight and was just, and going off at no one. I'm like, who, like, I felt like, you feel like the character's talking directly to you.
So the character literally like jumped up on a soapbox and began to lecture?
Yeah, we're talking directionality again, Brad. Remember, we talked like is it in the story talking to itself, or is it talking at you?
I definitely feel that that's the distinction.
Brad Pitt felt ripped out of the story. That's all I'm going to say.
Wow. Also,
I love how you put that in third person. That was great.
Well, also, guys, I think there's also now it's much more blatant because the best liars are dead. I like to say this about propagandists and like, because I go to the university and I've noticed how ham-fisted it all is. But like, let's face it, the Saul Alinsky's, the Michel Foucault's, they're dead. The genius liars are dead, right? So now you've got really bad liars who don't even know they're liars writing comics, and they do things like jump up on a coffee table.
That's what I was even saying with Alan Moore, was that you had guys like Alan Moore that came in and they did these super politically charged books that kind of revolutionized things. And so you had people trying to mimic those styles. And sometimes you had people that were really good at it for a while, and then they fell flat on their face because they didn't have anything to write anymore. And then you had people that came up that thought that they were that good, and they weren't. And you have this.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not. Like, that's clever.
I'm reminded of that talking about V for Vendetta in the movie. I can't remember because it's been a while since I read the graphic novel. Yeah. But in the movie, there's a scene where it builds up to this lesbian character, and it's woven right into the movie, and it's a beautiful, poignant thing, and it connects back to Evie, and or is it Eve? I can't remember how to say it, but Eve, Eve,
it enhanced the narrative,
and it was all part of the story, and it was beautifully written, and everyone but you never stopped to think. You never ripped out the story saying, "Oh wow, this is about." Representation in media. No, it was just part of the story. And then, go forward all these years, that would, in a movie today, they would just kind of ram that in where it wasn't.
It's interesting that you mentioned that scene, because recently there was a cartoon that did something very similar, and it got shit on for not being progressive enough for it. Voltron Legacy Defenders, the newer Netflix show, had in one of its later series a reveal that Shiro, the guy that had been doing was in charge of the Black Lion, was gay. Yeah. But they did it in a way where it wasn't like in your face. It was, you have a flashback and you find out that he essentially ruined his relationship with his partner to go up on the space mission that gets him captured. And then that partner ends up dying in the invasion of Earth. And he when he comes back, he has this beautiful scene where he mourns that loss because he was kind of hoping that he might be able to rekindle things if we ever made it back to Earth. And it was this brilliantly human thing that was just treated like as it was. Like, I find it baffling that the whole point of LGBT movement is to make it feel like, this is a normal thing. This is just as normal as it is as being in a heterosexual relationship. And yet we put so much emphasis in media to the point where it no longer feels normal.
How dare you not give it fanfare? You must make a big deal out of it because it is this thing.
But that's ridiculous because that's not what drives a character. I don't give dude, if Bruce Wayne did everything the same way that he did, if Bruce Wayne was written the exact same way he was from the beginning to now, and the focus of his character was always that no matter what, he put the mission first and everything like that, it wouldn't matter if he slept with a guy or a dude. It wouldn't. Because at the end of the day, Batman is Batman. Mm-hmm. Right? Like that's the thing. But if somebody tried to do that in a modern book, Batman's mission wouldn't matter at all. It would be.
Well, they did do that with Iceman. That's what they did.
What? They did Mr. Terrific in the Arrowverse as well. They took a great character and turned him into literally who am I dating this week? And your character is more than their sexual representation.
Is Iceman gay now? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, he is. He's been gay for 5 years at this point, Brad?
Oh God, has it really been that long?
Yeah,
it's not just that
it was when Marvel decided to let Bendis bring the young X-Men from the past forward, and then
you see, I actually liked that for a little bit.
I haven't read X-Men since Joe Mad was doing it. I haven't read since Joe Mad.
And you did get some crazy stuff like Bobby Drake coming out of Bobby Drake coming out of the closet, but then modern Bobby Drake was still hooking up with and you're just like, what the fuck is going on?
Hold on, just a second. Yeah.
To go along
those books did not sell, by the way.
They did
shop
not.
that I work in, they did not sell. Stacks this thick sitting in the back room.
Hey man, but it's okay because the numbers from the Diamond Distribution thing look all right, right? Because they forced you to buy that many.
Yeah. They double ship.
Another story that got kind of hammered by that. So if you've ever read George R.R. Martin's books, right, when it comes to that entire series.
Oh, are we going into the Game of Thrones final season?
Oh yeah. So here's the thing. I loved reading some of the books. When I saw the series, I noped out of there so quick because first off, how are you going to take a character like Littlefinger, which makes sense that he is so manipulative and kind of in everybody's little shit and everything like that, and you're going to just make him blatantly homosexual when that never happened in the book?
He is
simply because in the series. Oh yeah. Oh, in the series.
He's creepy all over Sansa. I don't know what you're if anything, he's on pedophilic standard.
Yeah, I don't remember him getting on any guys in the series.
Oh no. They did. There was a couple where he hooked up with a couple of a dude consort whatevers just because, and it had no purpose in the story. It did not do a single thing for the.
I think I know which scene you're talking about. I think and I do kind of get where you're going from. I think that the whole point of that scene was because he's in a three. He's going into a three-way with a dude and a girl. I know what scene you're talking about. I think that the point was that
a lot more dudes than a girl.
There's a little leeway.
They were trying to make
three-way
the leader of the brothel.
The thing that killed me about that, right, is if you pay attention to the character Littlefinger in the book. And everything that he does in the book, he's a complete and utter womanizer. That's his character. That's what he does. They literally threw in that entire scene of him getting busy with another dude simply because this is how we bring in another section. And all I could think of was, this has nothing to do with homophobia. What this has to do with is, this is straight up condescending as shit to that entire community, as well as to anyone who was a fan of the books.
They certainly did that with Renly and what's his name, Loras.
Yeah,
the whole relationship between them. There was some rumor and hearsay, but nothing definitive in the books. Renly was kind of supposed to be the almost King Arthur-esque.
They never showed anything in the books between them. It was all inferred.
Yeah, like that was the thing. It's like there were implications.
Right.
Like you had guys that would joke about it, but it was like you know, I served in the military. I did 6 years as an infantryman, and so like it would be the same thing as like guys sitting around the campfire making fun of their fucking platoon leader.
Right.
Like,
Well,
yeah, I bet he sucks the captain's dick. And
yeah,
like,
you had that disgusting scene where he's like shaving him and then going down on him, and it's like, okay, do we need to see this, guys? Come on,
well,
a little much.
HBO, we gotta earn that rating, man.
Because anytime you say anything about that, you're instantly like the conversation is shut down. You're instantly homophobic. You're transphobic. You're everything. And you know the funniest thing that kills me about that, my co-host for Red Valkyrie, cyborg, trans, right? The amount of times that people sit here and are like, oh, but that's a homophobic thing to say. That's a transphobic thing to say. It isn't. It's bad storytelling is what it is.
But Shay, I objected to the blatant pornography in the heterosexual stuff too. It's like, geez, do we really need all of this?
Right.
Like,
Well, if you read the books, it's pretty graphic there too.
Yeah, even there, like I don't like that stuff. Like it's like, come on, man, come on.
I think that there are certain things that definitely adds to the atmosphere. Like, for instance, I love the HBO series Rome. There was stuff like that all over the place. But on top of that, that's part of portraying the timeline authentically. Mm-hmm. Like, if you were in ancient Rome, you're going to walk around, there will be giant graffiti of dicks and political drawings and people sleeping with everybody. And
the Romans like their dick and fart jokes.
Like, dude.
All people like dick and fart jokes, dude. Just
it's timeless, and you can, as someone that has been to Italy, you can go into certain sections of the city that are like from antiquity, and you will straight up see not even just like graffiti, but like mosaics of like pornographic scenes. Like the modern concepts of like what is acceptable social behavior and everything is very modern, and especially goes back to like what, like 16th, 17th century, because like people just did whatever they wanted for a very long time, and like that was like, you know, even with writing Elysian Fields, I have Achilles and Patroclus, they're lovers. I'm not going to go in and be like, oh, this is the LGBT movement, because I don't think that that's an accurate representation of what they would like, even what they would identify with as characters, because the concept of sexuality isn't something that they would grasp. Like, you guys have to label this? I mean, we just do our thing.
How else do you virtue signal?
Well, that's something that's always bothered me. Like,
not.
When I was very first getting into comics, which granted wasn't that long ago, one of the things that really bothered me was the way that they handled Batwoman. Right? When you're not talking about Batgirl, you're talking about Batwoman. And I forget exactly when it was that I was reading it, but it was so heavy-handed that she was a lesbian. And it was like if you stripped that away from her, she had nothing. And that was the most frustrating thing for me. And it has nothing to do, at that point, it's nothing to do with homophobia. It has to do with the fact that if you're going to write a lesbian character, you should write a character that is at least still multifaceted. They shouldn't only have one identity. No character should ever have one thing that you could
it goes out like to bring up that. I mean, look at what they did with Batwoman. Like, you already had like Kate Kane already open as a lesbian. You had an episode of Batwoman where Batwoman, like Kate Kane as Batwoman, does a press conference to come out as open, and I'm just like, the whole point.
Wait, hold on. What?
Yes, that's a legit thing. Go look it up.
Ruby Rose would not
do the role unless she did it.
I was already out in the comic because of the way that it was like I think she busted it with some party and was like, yo, I'm lesbian or something crazy like that. And I was like, I'm out.
Like, this is my whole thing, is that like Kate Kane in the books has actually had some very competent writers and while he's never been my favorite member of the Bat family, I've had a respect for the fan base. But like, I look at this and I'm just like, the whole point of the Bat is that you're a symbol. You're not supposed to look and as a symbol, they can't know you're human. Like, I think that one of the only great things about the Arkham Knight video game was the fact that the reason why Bruce Wayne blows everything up in the end is because he has to let go of his entire humanity in order for Batman to succeed. Because Batman cannot be like you. The moment that you allow people to perceive Batman as anything other than Batman, the moment that you allow them to perceive it as anything other than the symbol of fear that it's supposed to evoke, you take away his power. And so it's just like, why is this nighttime vigilante that's supposed to be the legacy of Bruce Wayne's Batman coming out of the closet on a press conference? When the fuck has Batman ever held a press conference?
Well, I don't understand why it always has to be something grandiose like that. Like, why can't it just be...
Shay, you said you're new to comics.
Yes.
5 years ago, you wanted to promote your comic on Twitter. And there's still, to a large degree, happening in the kind of the more web comic side of Twitter.
Right.
Literally the only selling points you would put up were gender, whether you're genderqueer, whether you're gay, whether you're POC. You know, that was it. That was literally it. So when I sort of came onto the scene, this is all I saw. 100% of the time, that's the only way people talked about their comics. And it was just... tiresome,
and is what it is.
How is that anything to get excited about your comics? Like, what are they doing? Well, I don't know, but I know this about their personal life. What the fuck are they doing in the book?
You shouldn't be caring about what they do in the book, because what matters is me. I'm the celebrity.
No. Fuck you, I'm paying for an adventure.
SJWs cannot understand characters that exist outside of a singular identity. I don't need to sell Red Valkyrie on the fact that I'm a chick on the internet. That isn't what I'm selling Red Valkyrie on. If anybody ever wants to try and say I'm an ethot, go back and look at some of my videos. At one point, I dressed myself up as a damn frog, okay? I don't do what is going to get me views based on the fact that I'm a chick. What matters is what we do with our brand.
Yeah,
right?
no, absolutely.
It's the same way when it comes to other comics. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, or fucking gold. I don't give a shit what your
purple with polka dots
is.
You know what I think is the biggest shame of it. Speaking of the CW, is I think that one of the biggest shames is that, especially when you look at like the first 2 seasons of The Flash and the first 2 seasons of Arrow, is you clearly had people that gave a shit on those first 2 seasons. I remember Arrow was like decent. It kind of felt like discount Batman, but like okay, I understood. You're riding off of the success of the Nolan films, and you're using this character that's a bit unknown that has kind of a similar shtick. So I could get past that. But man, those first 2 seasons of The Flash were beautiful. You had great character dynamics. You had I remember the moment that I fell in love with The Flash was I think in the 2nd episode, and Barry is figuring out how his light speed power, his running powers work, and he's frustrated because he has all these pent up feelings about Iris that he can't communicate to her. So he speed runs.
Full disclosure, I didn't make it past the 2nd episode of The Flash. I didn't remember Barry being quite so whiny, so I gave up on it.
I was an Arrow man.
You're not wrong, but it's a CW thing, so the drama is gonna get played up. But let me tell you, man, that 2nd episode, there's this beautiful thing where Barry is speed running around Iris and is telling her all the things that he wished that he could.
Yes.
And it was just this is good writing. And then you have things like the first race between Reverse Flash and Barry was incredible.
Oh my God.
It was this emotionally charged thing where he's he recognizes it as, this is the guy that killed my mom. And he puts everything he has into it. And Reverse Flash shit stomps him.
Yes.
Well, and just puts him into the... It's like, you're not ready for this yet. Come back when you're ready. And you're
one thing I loved about the way CW handled it, right? So in the comics, Iris is not black, right?
Right.
Iris is white. Well, in CW, Iris is black. The way that they handled it was they never even fucking addressed it. Iris was a person, okay? And Barry was a person. And they existed together. And the more Barry saw Iris, the more he was like, damn, that's my girl.
It was
amazing.
It also doesn't hurt when you have a Tony Award winning actor playing Iris's dad. Like
that definitely helps.
Joe West. Joe West is one of the MVPs of that show that I feel doesn't get enough credit because literally that man holds up so much of the character dynamic glue. Because I liked Grant Gunston, but for like the first 3 seasons, I hated Iris. I didn't like her at all.
I had a hard time with her because she seemed a little snooty, but by season 2, I was
just
like,
hated how she
I
treated
like this bitch.
I just hated how she treated Barry. She'd be like, "Oh, you're my best friend," and I was like, "Okay, if you only see him as friends, that's fine." But then Barry would go off and date somebody, and she'd become a complete overpossessive bitch. You're like, "We're engaged."
All right. So I know why you didn't like it. You didn't like it because she was real. That's how girls are. So here's the thing. She was a very
that's straight up fucking true right there. I need more whiskey.
I understand. It's just one of those things where I was just like, "You're not a likable love interest."
No, but she is for women. That's the thing. So here's
and I get it. That's at the end of the day, CW markets towards a specific demographic.
Right. Well, so this is what I'm going to say about CW and Iris, right? When I very first saw this, I was like, you know what, Iris? Fuck you. You'd be lucky to have Barry. And then the more I saw her, I was like, you know what, Barry? You need to grow the fuck up. Like, and I sat there and I went, I'm going to see how this plays out. I don't know who I'm rooting for anymore. I love Barry.
My whole thing was I thought that every single time Barry would would try and move on and be like, okay, I'm going to do the responsible thing. She very clearly only sees me as a friend, and I'm going to move on and make the right decisions with my life. She'd get upset, and I just went.
It's called having a man on a hook. It's what girls do because we're evil.
But that's.
We're pure evil. Have you not noticed this yet? We are the worst. Women are the worst. Because here's the thing. I'll give you, you know what? Everyone pull up a seat. I'm going to give you all a little insight into a woman's mind right now. Okay? This is how it works. If you want me,
hell, Shay, school in session now. Come on.
Yes, exactly. Well, if you want me, I want you in the.
You got to do this.
But, but the second you move on and you show me that you are independent and you don't need me, that's going to hit me in a place that I didn't know existed, and I'm going to fight for you. Okay, but then if I fight for you and you walk away from that woman, that just means that you're not faithful and you're not strong enough to stay with your girl. So I don't need you anymore. So that's how women think. Women are evil.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly why I fucking drink whiskey forever.
Hey, Shay, is that the shit test that I just told you about last time?
Dude, I wish I had that right now.
Now you get what the shit test is?
How many girls I missed out on in high school because they were playing these stupid games and I was just completely oblivious to what was going on. And then years later, they'd tell me about it. I'm going, what? What are you talking about? And all these things were happening in their heads and I just had no idea.
The classic, I always wished you would have asked me out, but you never seemed to. And now all of a sudden you're the asshole that never tried. And that's why you never did.
Exactly.
It had nothing to do with the girl dragging you along and then pushing you away for 5 years. That wasn't it.
I got that
fact that you just never had the balls to ask.
I had no idea you liked me.
You know what? This is what I'm going to tell every guy out there. If there's a girl you're even moderately interested in, even just a tiny, tiny little bit, and you want to try and take her on a date, fucking ask her out, because the only way you're going to know where you stand is if you ask her out and you say, look,
you're correct.
I want to take you out. I want to take you out to dinner. This is what I want to go do. That is the only way you're ever going to know if that girl has completely and utterly friend zoned you, or if you have a damn chance. Because if she goes, oh, I don't know, you have a chance. You always have a chance. If she looks at you and she goes,
if it's not a no, there is always a
yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's always got to be direct about your intentions.
It just matters how many Jello shots she did first.
I did do the can't hardly wait thing once. I wrote the letter once, and I actually gave it to her, and she totally shot me down. But 3 years later, after she graduated and I was a senior, she saw me again and came after me like a fucking predator.
Yeah.
So I did.
Karmatic evil.
I'm just saying, okay, so the girls that people are like, she definitely has a date, or she's way too pretty, or whatever. Those girls never get asked out and never have dates. I'm telling you that
I've
right
noticed
now.
that.
It is a
I've
complete
noticed
that.
fact. Do you know how many people I dated in high school?
100? Oh.
Do you know which one of them I married? The second one. Okay? I dated 2 people in high school. I married the second one. I'm just saying. It's those women never get asked out on dates. If you think that she's out of your league, fucking ask her. Okay?
Okay, who's drunk by now?
I don't have alcohol, so
So
unfortunately.
Shay, Luke,
We're
are
not
you getting there?
No,
Okay.
there's too much Jameson left in the bottle. I'm not quite drunk yet.
Because it always happens.
I've
It
got
starts-
a second one.
What did they drink in ancient
Donnie
Greece? I'm
Darko
drinking that.
mask that you came in. That was
They
nice.
drank wine, diluted. Because remember, barbarians dilute their wine. Don't dilute their wine.
No, I'm
Right.
on my second strawberryta. Because I'm
Stra-
fancy.
That
Actually,
sounds
quite
horrible.
I think the Romans had that nasty ass.
I was
fish
going to
sauce.
say it, but okay.
I can't remember what it was called. It's like a weird ass condiment they put on everything. Ugh, it was disgusting.
You know what? I'll stick with my Norse
Heathen.
brothers and mead. You know.
There you go,
Hey,
honey.
you never go wrong.
If I had mead,
great.
okay, I'd be drinking it. But what I have is strawberryta and vodka.
You know what?
and some wine.
You know what bothers me about you two Nordics? You don't have horns. What's wrong with you people? Where's
I
your
have
horn?
horns that are just not on.
No, drink your out of a horn. What's wrong with you two?
I have a horn. I just don't have anything to put in it.
Okay.
You got one.
And it's packed away.
I'm
I have a
broke
human
service
horn.
member. Do you know how expensive those are? Because I went to Germany. I was like, I'm going to buy me one of these damn horn mugs. And then I looked at it and was like, $150? That is not happening.
Dude,
What you got? What
go
Frank
to
you
a
got?
rent fair. What are
Frankie's
you
got a
doing?
horn.
Oh.
Go to a rent fair. Hell yeah. This man's got the right plan.
Oh, I love Frankie.
Yeah, well, we can't see what Brad is doing. Who knows what he's drinking over there?
I'm drinking wine off a bevy of naked Greek women. You should see it.
You're having a bacchanal over there. You're having
Blue
a
Samurai's
Dionysian festival.
Blue Samurai's in the chat breaking the reality.
Because it always happens. We start out real serious and on the point, and then we start getting drunk later on, and I end up designated dork for the rest of you.
Isn't that how streams go?
What do you say?
Isn't that how streams are supposed to go?
He's got a horn.
Usually. I mean,
Good for you, man. Good for
I
you.
know.
That's because I'm a proper Viking.
Stay a little more on topic, but
Hey man, I've got mine. It's just packed away, and I don't have.
That's like a shot horn.
It is. You know.
You want to get one of those big longhorn Texan longhorns.
I know the Vikings didn't have horns, but they're cool. Okay,
Vikings.
Yeah, their helmets definitely did not have horns.
they didn't have the Rams horns, but they're still cool looking.
Oh, you're talking about on the helmets. It was like they totally
Aesthetic.
had horns.
You know, like the stereotypical like Frazetta-esque Rams.
Yeah,
horn,
no,
you know?
they did. Like some of them, like I think one of the greatest depictions of Vikings that we've seen in anything, as far as like what they wore, is actually in this movie called The 13th Warrior.
I like that movie. I was actually thinking about that the other day.
Because the whole thing with the Vikings is that everyone assumes that there's like a standard Viking getup. There was not. They raided, and like they would like yes, they had like standard things that their smiths would do that had their genuine craftsmanship, but like the big thing is that the steel that they had up there was shit. So like if they found something nice where they were pillaging, guess what? That was your new equipment. Like
You want that Damascene steel?
yeah, so that was something that I really liked, was that you had all the Vikings, and you had like one Viking that was in a conquistador kind of style of outfit.
Yeah, because they probably raided along the coast of Spain and grabbed
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And then you had some, and they all had picked up like several different languages and what have you. Like one of the characters was able to speak Latin as well as.
Yeah, that was weird, man. I was like, wait a minute, I can understand what these people are saying. What's going on here? I don't speak Norse.
Well,
wait, they're speaking Latin.
That was the whole thing. It was like these people were very well traveled, and they picked stuff up wherever they went.
Well, it was also the diplomatic.
That's what made the 13th Warrior work.
Yeah,
it was also the diplomatic language, because both the Arab and the Northmen could speak it.
Well, that was honestly one of my favorite parts about the 13th Warrior is also listening. The scene where Antonio Banderas is watching all the Vikings speak,
Yes.
and is picking up all the common phrases and is figuring out what they're saying, and figures out how to speak in their tongue. I thought that was genius.
Well, Shay knows once you get the personal endings down, you can kind of figure out what's a verb and what's a noun.
Yeah.
Shay, you're a linguist.
Yeah.
You are. You could speak
like,
Farsi,
what?
which is the most weird, complicated language.
I can muddle my way through a really shitty version of a language. Yes.
Yeah, I love Latin, but I hate Greek. I hate it.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
I hate Greek.
It's not great. There's a reason why it's like the expression is all Greek to me, especially if you're looking at like ancient Greek.
Oh my god, these fucking clauses within clauses within clauses. Ah.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Like if you ever want something that's gonna make you want to go jump off a bridge, go and try and read shit like frickin'
Rumi?
my gosh, like Hafez or Remy or any of the Persian poets. They will make you want to just jump off a bridge and never look back. It's ridiculous. They're basically pretentious assholes. Essentially what it is. They're all pretentious assholes. They feel
I'm
like they know
sure I've
all
ever
of the
heard
things.
Rumi described as a pretentious asshole, but suddenly it fits.
It's like reading Cicero. Cicero's kind of like that. You're like, you fucker, the verb is like all the way down there, you asshole.
So the way the Persian works,
And then he was really
Showing
good.
off how well they understand the language. Yeah.
the way the Persian works would be noun, verb, and you're like, what the fuck what goes with what? And you have to work it like you're at a fine dining restaurant. You have to go in to out, and so you know what.
told me
If we're gonna be talking about language,
Sounds like a
here,
fucked up math problem.
Yes,
God. Like
So-
order of operations in a sentence? No fucking thank
it's
you.
really great when they speak to you in a bunch of sentences together, and that's what they do. And then they're like, "Chifek mikonid," which is what do you think? And you go, "Yekdagige," which is 1 minute. And you're like, I have to go back and realize who went with what verb and what happened and what you said, because depending on the word order will depend on if I should be offended or if I should just vehemently agree with you. And so you have to work your way back out and then be like,
Oh Lord.
oh, you're a bitch.
So when speaking of language horror stories, so when I was in high school, I was in an AP Latin class, and our teacher was this guy named Lieutenant Granger. I went to a military high school, and this guy was the 4th greatest Harry Potter expert in the world. Yes, that's a thing. And so our Latin class, as an AP Latin class, was to help him translate and trope all 6 Harry Potter books from Latin to English. Let me tell you how fun it is to conjugate a word that doesn't exist in a fucking dead language.
You have to make it up. So what were the words? Like, what was one example of making it up?
Like that was over 10 years ago, but I remember we came across like things like flying car. And I was just like,
okay, what declension is that? Like, is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9? Like
you literally just had to be like, it was essentially like you looked at other words that were similar and what have you, and you just fucking bullshitted it.
It's a neuter, okay? The flying car is a neuter noun, and it's a
that sounds like the test I had to take in order to become a linguist. What they do is they take English grammar and then they flip the rules and they say, these are now what the rules are. And then they give you sentences and they go, ready, go. What does it mean? And you have to try and guess what it means based off of things that go against your natural understanding of the English language. And then I just remembered the last question that I had. The last question made no sense to me. They said, there are 3 people in a family. There is a fat dad, a dumb son, and a skinny mom or something like that, right? And then they go, based on that information alone, what does this mean? There are 3 birds in a bush. And I was like, one's fat, one's dumb, one's skinny. Can I leave now? Like, I don't know what you want me to get from that sentence. And none of those were the answers. So I just I looked at it and I looked at my list and I went, I haven't picked C in a while. I just picked C and off I went. And now
it gets brutal, man. When they start making you do real Persian or real Latin, and you don't look at your notes. Just tell me what you think. And you're like,
Persian.
Well, I'll tell you.
Hold up. Does that mean language is based on a feeling instead of set rules for a language?
No, they
Is
just
that
want you
what
to
it
do
means?
real Latin, and real Latin means just you got to freestyle now, buddy.
So,
But the language is dead, sir.
so Persian. Here's the
Don't
fun
read the
thing
fucking
about
Latin.
Persian. I'm gonna tell you guys some fun stuff about Persian. So depending on the generation that you're talking to will depend on if your Persian is good or shit, right? If you're talking to the elderly, your Persian is garbage no matter what you do. There's nothing you can do to make it better because none of it is pure. But if you actually use the words that they've created, because there's things that have happened since Persian was developed, like computers and cars. Those things didn't exist when Persian was first being incepted, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So
Ancient aliens, homie.
so what they did is they took these words and they all had English cognates. That was how you said it. So if you were going to say computer in Persian, you'd say computer, right?
Right.
It's a cognate.
Like Japanese.
Right.
Right.
But if you say computer to somebody who is older, they're going to get super pissed at you because that isn't pure Persian. That is garbage English that is infiltrated Persian, and how dare you defile such a pure language?
So you have to like get around
like the
telling them
French.
about a computer
Oh,
by
no.
saying
Wow.
They designated new words, right? So the word for computer, if you want to speak pure Persian, is rayone.
but it's not pure Persian. You made it up.
So here's the best part. You say
Yeah, but they made it up
rayone.
in the vein of the original language. It's totally
Say-
different.
Okay, is
Say
it like a word where it's
rayone
like
to
magic box
anybody.
or something?
Say rayone to anybody who speaks Persian, and they're gonna look at you sideways and be like, "The fuck do you mean?" You go computer, and they go, "Oh, computer," and you're like, "It's not pure Persian. Why are you okay with this?" It's the
So you're
same thing.
damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, so you have automobile and hodro, but hodro luckily has been around long enough that they're like, okay, we know what you
What's
mean.
the root of hodro? Like, what is it? Like because there's no cars in
Had-
ancient Persia. So what is it?
Hadara, I think, which is
Why not just
the
use cherry?
Arabic side of it.
It's a what?
It's an Arabic side of it. It's hadara, I believe.
So a belief? That's what it means.
No, hadara is what I think it is. I can't remember, but I think that it basically means machine.
Okay.
Because you can, so there's three words to say car. You can say automobile, which is what is mostly used. Hodro, which is sometimes used, and then machine, which is for anything that is a machine, usually for a car, but can be for anything else,
Yeah.
depending on context.
In Spanish, it's just coche.
That's like in Italian, there's automobile, and they say macchina.
Yeah, machina too. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, exactly.
Why not just own the cool shit from the ancient language that nobody uses anymore? Like, nobody is going to colloquially use the word chariot. There you go. That's been around since ancient Persia. Like,
Fetch my chariot.
Well, there you go. But you know, you've got derivatives of that like coche, you know, like a coach.
yeah,
you know,
no,
it's the
like,
same type of
that-
technology.
That makes sense. Like Spanish, you do coach, which is coach, and like that to me makes sense because a coach is like a car. Another word for a coach in English is car.
Yeah.
Right?
Or you'll say carro, you know, but
Carro, yeah.
But that makes sense. But like to create a whole new word for something that is similar to something that has existed before just blows my mind. It's just like just repurpose.
Oh yeah, so because you said that, I looked up what the Persian word is for chariot.
yeah, what is it?
Arabe.
It's similar
That
to
would be cool.
Latin, Eureka. I think,
Okay.
yeah. What's the Greek for chariot? I forgot. Is it-
Oh,
Oh,
hold
I'm
on.
not even touching that with a 50-foot pole.
yeah,
Hold on.
I looked at the Iliad once in Greek and I said,
Greek.
I need to get to a different class.
Greek.
I'm
Oh,
doing it now, and you're very
Arma?
lucky. It's you want to kill yourself.
Hold on,
Dude,
wait, hold on.
like that was one of my things that I was really excited when I was in my undergrad. I was like, oh, I'm going to be a classicist. And so I took my Latin, and like the classics major department was like, you have to take ancient Greek if you're going to do.
Yeah, you're all
classics.
cocky because Latin was so much easier. You know,
That's-
you're like,
And
"Oh,
so
That's it. Well-
and I had taken
What is that? That's-
Latin in high school, so like it was a blast to get through the first Latin
Alma?
course. And then I went into ancient Greek, and that's the moment that I decided that I wasn't going to be a classics major anymore.
Oh, no, if you want
1
something
week in
fun,
Greek, and I was like, oh, fuck.
if you want something fun, go into ancient Persian, because not only is it a
Pardon?
bunch of words that don't exist anymore, it's all written in handwriting. And if you've never seen Persian handwriting, hold on, let me find some for you.
I think it's Arma. You know,
Arma, yeah.
Arma. Like with it's got a. I think there's an accent on it with the A.
Oh man.
I like Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
Look, let's just do the
There
George
actually
Carlin.
used to be a museum here in town. They used to have a Dr. Seuss museum.
Hey, Luke, let's just do the George Carlin. In your own words, what did you see? Abu, blah, blue, blah, blue, flu. You said in my own words.
Oh jeez.
I miss Carlin. Holy shit.
We need him right now. Like, we seriously need him right now.
Carlin would get canceled right now, but, you know, I miss Carlin anyway.
I miss. You want to know who I wish was alive right now and would do some sort of political commentary on the current situation of things?
Bill
fucking
Hicks?
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles.
Could you imagine? Could you fucking imagine him doing like a Citizen Kane style thing with today's fucking environment?
I don't know, man. With the food the way it is, he probably would have ate himself to death in 5 minutes.
I don't give a shit about that. In 5 minutes, he'd come up with one of the best programs ever invented.
What's Shay putting up here?
Do you see? This is why I don't do anything with ancient Persian. Okay, these are words.
It's
and
very
letters.
pretty and it makes no sense.
Yeah,
Those are calligraphy
that's
warm-ups.
a cough. So that's carde. Hold on, wait. Let me see if I can read this. Carde. Nope, that's it. Conad hast.
I mean, the brushwork is great, but I mean, it's,
I have no idea what the fuck this says.
Are you sure that's not the result to a lie detector test?
There's actually a Shay. There's actually
It's
something.
actually a Miyazaki film, guys.
There's actually something like that in the Roman Forum. It's called the Lapis Niger, and it has this weird Latin that even the Romans couldn't read that kind of goes like this, like a path, and winds around itself. Mm-hmm. And the only way you could read it is it literally goes into a swirl, like on the way down. And even even the Romans couldn't read it.
So the way that Persian calligraphy works, right? So if you look at our calligraphy, it's usually really pretty, but you can still at least read it. When you do Persian calligraphy, dots, which are a main component of the language, it's like half the letters are dependent on the dots and their position. Okay, they become suggestions. They end up wherever the fuck they please, whatever looks best for the calligraphy at hand, and you are expected to understand it based on context. Here's the shitty part. All of their words are so close together, right, that without the dots, you have no fucking clue what the hell they're saying. And I have shown these to native Persians and been like, what's this say? And scholars, PhDs, who came from Iran, who look at this and go,
like, you're on your own.
I have no fucking clue. And I'm like, okay.
That it actually happens. Like, maybe Odin knows this, but remember when you would get higher in Latin, they take out the macrons, and you're like, holy shit, I don't know which conjugation of the verb this is.
We don't talk about those things.
Is it 2 or 3?
We don't.
Way above my pay grade.
But you know what I'm talking about, right? Where they took out the accents.
Yes,
You're
I am well aware. No, I know what you're talking about. We don't talk about that.
Oh,
the Dark Days.
Samurai. No, it was facing multiple directions depending on how you hold the paper. Apparently, it was all different.
It still goes with the theme of writing, guys, because we're big nerds and we like talking about writing.
I mean, you know what? We're still on theme because the theme is themes.
and
theme can be whatever we want it to be, guys.
And I'm dealing with drunk people, guys. Come on.
We're dead in the
I'm
ground.
not that drunk.
I feel like I'm in a master class.
Listen, I'm not.
Bring in the clowns.
Too drunk to do this stream.
Clowns, you clowns.
Slowly getting there, but not too drunk to do this
Cheeky
stream.
bastard says they're not that drunk.
Not quite that.
Is Brad dead?
Listen,
like, what happened to him?
If I start talking in a Scottish accent permanently, then I'm about to pass out. So
Are you having a? Hey, Luke, are you going to have a vowel movement if you're Scottish? When you get drunk? That's what happens, man. You drink with a Scotsman, they have vowel movements.
No, I've been watching that show Outlander, and every time I do, I speak in a Scottish accent for like 3 fucking days afterwards. I can't stop myself. I just keep going.
It's sort of like me and Jesse Ventura. Whenever I watch him, I start talking like, time to go to the Apple store. Oh yeah, that's the government's line. And everything becomes Jesse Ventura. I remember my ex-girlfriend, I was like, hey, Claire, when are we going to get some food? And she's like, stop it. I'm going to kill you.
Okay,
Nope.
just to let you guys know, this is what the language looks like when it's written perfectly. Like this is the type, okay?
Yeah.
So as you can see, the fucking dots matter a lot. And whenever I take a test, it never looks like this. The dots are, it's usually something that's been photocopied about 4 or 5 times.
Do you want to cry when you see a paper and you're like, you can't see anything on it?
Yeah. Oh, so when they start writing it, right? And here's the shittiest part about it. When they start writing it, it'll just be like bump, bump, bump. And it's been photocopied 500 times. The dots have disappeared at this point. You're lucky that you have bumps.
That honestly reminds me of studying for my bar mitzvah when they have like the sections of the Torah portion that are written in script.
Yes.
And so it's missing all the vowels, and they've photocopied it like 20 million times. And so you're just like, well, what the fuck does this mean? And so you have a teacher there specifically designed to not even help you understand this shit. Just like, this is how this is pronounced. Just memorize that and you'll be fine.
Yes.
And that was it.
Hey, Shay, can I ask you something? Can you do an
That
Australian
sounds
accent
awful.
for us, please?
Was not.
Wait, what?
An Australian accent, please?
I can't.
Please?
Everyone asks for this. I can't do it.
Please?
Do it in my
Do
presence.
it for Brad Pitt.
You gotta do it. Please, baby, baby, please. Please, baby, baby, please. Please, baby, 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 please.
I'll give you out of 10.
What the fuck just happened? What?
They want me to do an Australian accent, and I'm terrible at accents. The only accent I can do is Persian. Everything sounds
I'll
Persian.
give you a score out of 10.
Yeah, go for it.
It's gonna
Do
be
it for Brad.
one.
He'll show you his pectoral muscles.
Okay, hold on. Wait, what do I say? Give me something to say in Australian.
Say, dingo your baby. I don't know.
What?
No, you gotta give her more than like 3 words.
Just
You have to have an
find a little bit of
accent.
text. Just find a sentence, a normal sentence. Don't say anything stereotypical. Just find a normal sentence.
I'm just trying to be an asshole, Brad.
Mike, I have to say
There's
something
a one bottom of
stereotypical, or I'm never going to get an accent.
Okay. So
There's a kangaroo in the middle of the road.
Put some shrimp on the
There's
Barbie.
a kangaroo
There you
in
go.
the middle of
That-
the road.
Fuck, I knew
that gets a
was
2,
coming.
Mike. You get a 2 for that. 2 out of 10. I barely heard any Australian in that.
I wasn't
This to me. That sounded like this. Put the shrimp on the Barbie.
accent. I was giving her something to say.
Jay, just say, excuse me, sir, can you point me to where the ample Vegemite is?
Excellent. I'll give it to you. Ready?
That's not
Excuse
a
me,
normal
sir.
sentence.
Can you point me to where the ample Vegemite is?
Ooh, okay. Can you point me to where the ample Vegemite is?
That wasn't
Oil
bad.
food.
That's all I
Brad,
got.
4 out of 10. I'm sorry.
Yes!
I'm sorry.
I got
She almost beat the halfway curve.
There was an attempt, but you got off track at ample, and you said like ample or something, and then
Ample.
you couldn't get it back after that.
I know.
Brad, you got to give me
That's
props for
what
knowing what
everything
Vegemite
turns
is.
Persian.
You got to give me
Yeah,
that.
mad
Oh,
props.
please.
Mad.
Shut up! I've got Vegemite in my cabinet
Laying
over
down
there.
under knows the
Yeah, it's an acquired taste.
That's how I
Oh,
like
yeah.
would hit on Australian girls. Is that you bring up the Vegemite and they're like, "Oh my god, you know what Vegemite is." I'm like,
Australians
So
love
it-
it. Australians love it when anyone else around the world knows anything about them.
Oh,
Well, that's how I break the
it's
ice.
the same thing.
What exactly
Okay.
do you guys use Vegemite for? Because
Yeah.
I've tasted it and it's so goddamn salty, it's ridiculous. What do you use?
I
it for?
don't actually eat it. I never ate it.
Okay.
Even as a child, I thought it was disgusting. But
All
I'd
right.
say I'm probably in the overwhelming minority. I'd say probably a good 90% of Australians do eat it, and I've seen them lather it onto toast. Really thick.
I don't
toast.
understand that.
Sounds awful.
Mate, that's bloody disgusting. It is.
I guess it's sort of like
Yeah.
something like in Israel where they have fussy boobly, whatever it's called, the drink that they love there in Israel.
Yeah,
The fussy boobly.
I haven't had any myself, but that is we had a teacher from Tel Aviv, and he had a whole bunch shipped over.
Yeah, like a crate you carry with him. Yeah, he was fiending.
Dude, there's just some things that people enjoy, like all over.
Well, you know what? I come from a South American, Argentine, Uruguayan family, and I drink mate by the boatful. So
I want to try mate.
I sent Dan a get well package of like a mate kit, but unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, he only got
With
the
like
thermos. So he's like pulling
round-
out this random thermos, going, "Thanks, bro, for the get well gift." There's like a thermos you sent me.
I thought that counts.
Right, but it's funny because
he'll get the whole thing eventually.
A kit, but it just came
or a
today.
USPS worker just drank it. I mean, hey.
I just thought it's funny. He's gonna pull out a thermos and go,
"You're gonna enjoy this package."
He's like, "Thanks for the thermos.
So,
appreciate it."
I have a question then, because I was stationed in England for a while, and so I tried a couple of traditional British. Like I never got around to haggis, which was really just kind of a shame. But randomly the tavern that I was staying in did not have haggis on the menu. They had black pudding, which was phenomenal if done right. I've also had absolutely horrendous black pudding. But have any of you guys tried like black pudding, banoffee pie, British crumpets, which I'm not talking about.
Have had British crumpets. I've not had any.
People from the south of the border don't take with your savage, barbarian confections.
Fuck you. I'm particularly fond of bangers and mash. Bangers and mash is fucking great.
Bangers and mash can be very good. It can also be really. It's just sausage.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's
depends on if the person's incompetent or not.
Who was it that had? I think it was Jim Gaffigan. Is like that you fucked up on food when vinegar and oil are things that make your food taste better.
Okay. You've run out of options.
Except if you ever have fish and chips and you ever do fish and chips without vinegar, you're a heathen. How dare you, sir?
Blasphemy.
If you do not put vinegar and salt on it, you're a terrible person.
Although it is good, but I don't have to have it on there.
Mike!
Just salt and a bit of lemon sometimes is fine.
No, that's never enough.
In Australia, we do fish and chips better than the British anyway.
Okay,
oh man, Gordon Ramsay.
It's like
Gordon Ramsay.
It's like, what the fuck is that?
I'm about to.
There's a bingo over there.
That was good. That was good. That was a broad Australian accent. Yeah, like Steve Irwin.
I got friends who live in Cairns, Australia.
This thing's made out of PVC.
That's why I was a kid. I was 6 years in Cairns.
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that where it rains like pretty much all year round, like up to your waist in water?
No. It's that'd be a little bit further north in the rainforest. But in Cairns, it's sort of on the tip. You're really getting towards the rainforest, but you're not quite in there. It's just stinking hot. It's just stinking hot all year round. You do get
like one area of Australia that's like purple in terms of rainfall, and it's like right there, around there.
That's the area where it's Arnhem Land, I believe. It's all rainforest. It's indigenous land. It's all you don't really go there.
And yeah, I was going to say, like, in other words, it's filled with things that will kill you.
Oh, and it's just thick. It's just dense rainforest.
Everything south of the fucking equator wants to kill me. Are you serious?
I was walking home from work about a month ago. I was sort of being silly and looking at my phone while I was walking, and the lady called out, "Snake!" And I looked down, and there's a brown snake right in front of me. These are the third most venomous snakes in the world. If you get bitten by this thing, and you don't get to the hospital within 20 minutes, you could be done for.
Don't you guys have like all of the venomous everything? On
I think we have the top 10 most venomous.
They also have like that deadly, like tiny box jellyfish that if it stings you and you don't get to the hospital within 10 minutes, you're done.
And great white sharks all over the place.
The rest of the world said fuck all of this shit and sent it to Australia, and then
including the people.
Right? I mean, the continent started out as a penal colony.
Yes.
Man,
get the fuck out of England. You know you did something wrong when the English tell you to get the fuck out.
Well, the English told everyone to get the fuck out. That's not really a good excuse.
But from England, if you're too uptight,
shit, everyone's in our city and nobody has money for anything, and so people are robbing everyone. Well, we'll just send all of our criminals everywhere.
Most of the people who get killed here are tourists. So, like, you'll get, especially German tourists. The crocodiles in Northern Territory, they have a taste for German tourists. So they go swimming up there in the
automatic wheel of justice.
The same is true in Florida. The gators like to eat people.
And the crocodiles eat them because, I don't know, maybe they just don't It happens. It seems to happen every couple of years. Another German tourist has been eaten by another crocodile. And these things are massive. They're many.
Are they the
many
saltwater
meters
crocs?
long. We have both, but yeah, the big ones are the saltwater.
Right.
And
yeah.
but I mean, they'll all
Fucking
get you.
Massive.
Well, you know how them Germans are. They think they're superior to everyone, including crocodiles. It's like they won't hurt us. We're Germans.
Yeah.
I know
We even have a prehistoric bird here called a cassowary. It's like a dinosaur, and it's
Man,
massive.
that thing looks like a fucking velociraptor.
It does, and it acts like
and-
they hunt you. They hunt you.
Oh yeah, that
Is
thing
that the
wants
one
to
from
kill
Crocodile
you.
Where they were trying to scare the crap out of the Colombian guys and saying that there's this bird that fly around and they're all getting all scared and they have to have the fire on at all times. Is that the one, or am I just being a stereotypical asshole?
I don't know about that, but look at it's a big,
have
weirdly
no
colored
idea.
bird with crazy claws. And when I
It's
say
got a
big,
big like horn ridge
Yeah.
What's it
on
called?
its head.
What is it
It's a
called? Like, bring it up,
cassowary.
Shay.
CASSOWARY.
It's what they base the velociraptors on in Jurassic Park, like their movements, the way they walk, the way they move. They've got a big fucking hook claw. Yeah, it's
Yeah, they
ridiculous.
hunt you in pairs and everything. They're
Really?
vicious.
So, like,
We've got one over here at the alligator farm here in old St.
I'm looking
Augustine.
this shit up.
Hold on. Oh damn, that's a small ass picture. Hold on, that doesn't work for me. I need to verify. You know what?
Oh my god, these things look horrifying.
Yeah, you go to a park that has them, and they have massive double fences and
Super thick plexiglass that still has gouges in it.
So it's like a scene from Jurassic Park in the beginning where they're loading the Velociraptor and you're gonna fall in, they're gonna pull you in.
This
yeah,
red- Look at this.
yeah.
Fucking
That's a
neat.
whole-
Check
Look
it
at
out.
those eyes. Look at that
Try
one.
and get something so you can see the scale, because they are friggin' huge. They're the second heaviest bird in the world. So they're not as tall as the emu, but they're almost as heavy as an ostrich.
Yeah, you see, this is why I've always said that, like,
One with a
They
rooster.
look like
No
a
one
pissed
has
off
ever been-
emu.
to settle in Australia and New Zealand. There's just
Oh,
way
with the
too
person.
much time to kill everyone.
This dude, if this is the dude I think it is, this dude is fucking insane. Yep, it is. It's
Brave wilderness guy. This guy is crazy. If you guys have ever seen him, granted, I don't know why you would have. If you've ever seen this dude, he's clinically insane. Like he literally goes around the world and finds the most venomous, the most evil, the worst bite of whatever fucking creature. And then he fucking has it bite him. And then he shows you what that after effect is while he has his entire crew of guys waiting with anti-venom nearby. Like he's out of his fucking mind. I've watched him get bit by bullet ants. If you've ever seen a bullet ant bite, it is brutal. This dude is a brave wilderness.
Squish first, ask questions later.
I'm pretty sure that half of his show is taking place in Australia because that's where all of the crazy ass fucking shit is. But he goes to Australia and he just gets bit by shit. And then he's like, oh, it's fine. It's not that bad. And he's like, oh my gosh, my arm's going to fall off. Hit me with the anti-venom. And then he rides for 3 hours.
What does he do for the finale? He dies?
No, he has managed to live through everything and I don't know how.
What a whack job.
It's like the year Steve Irwin died when all the people were getting attacked by the stingrays. Remember? It was like the year of the stingray. They were like jumping on the
It was the first
boats.
time it ever happened too. It was happening twice. Someone brought up, Gleth Walker brought up in the chat that the platypus, you know, the cute little duck-looking mammal thing.
You mean proof that God gets high?
It's the only mammal. It's got a poisonous spur on its leg.
Oh, yeah, time leg.
Even our cute mammals will give you a sting.
So, okay, complete and full disclosure, I legitimately had a platypus stuffed animal as a kid, and it was my favorite stuffed animal, and none of my friends knew what the fuck a platypus was. So I was walking around with this weird duck beaver thing, and everyone was like,
thought it's made up.
It's the coolest thing that's ever existed. It's a platypus. Like, why do you have a stuffed animal with it? Like, because my people.
There was a comedian who said, "Oh, God had leftover parts and he made a platypus."
Yeah,
Somebody
yeah.
was.
My brother saw one in the wild, which is extraordinarily rare because they live in burrows underneath streams. Like they go underwater and they dig out little burrows underneath the stream. So to see one in the wild is really rare.
And how about koalas? How often do you see those guys?
You're not going to see one anywhere near any cities. You've got to go out into the really country suburbs. But you really got to be out in regional areas. But they're pretty rare. The most common thing you're going to see are kangaroos and snakes.
Okay, and are kangaroos no picnic when it comes to assaults on your body?
No, kangaroos
They can hit really hard.
They will only fight you if you attack them. They're lazy. Pretty they'll fight each other, but they don't have any beef with you. If you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. But if you start up with them, as some people have done, you're gonna have a bad time because they know exactly where to hit you, and they've got big claws and strong. They lean back on their tails and kick you in the nuts to try and rip them off.
Like they know, they aim right for the nuts every time they kick a dude. Like,
and they'll punch you as well. People like there's TV shows where you see people have put boxing gloves on them, for fun, and then the kangaroo knows what it's supposed to do when you put boxing gloves on it, and it starts just hammering into the host and stuff.
Yeah, like,
I've seen one that's a lady getting pummeled.
They're strong
because they pick out one person and they go after them.
Right, they kind of have that look like I don't like the cut of your jib, and they just start fucking you up.
Can you imagine the first poor bastard that was drunk and came across a pissed off kangaroo? What the fuck is this? Oh my god!
Like the very first English convict, like, oh, this is a nice looking little critter. Like, who are you?
What is this rodent? And then gets kicked in the nuts and is like, what the fuck just happened to me? Yeah.
Cat wanted us to look up wombat poop with
nightmare content.
Cubed poo of the wombat. That's right.
And the crocodile that was named
out. Shay, if you take that perfectly shaped cube and you make it pink and make it smell like flowers, you have what women poop.
Is that what we do?
Yeah, that's how women poop.
I must have missed that.
I've been telling you, porky pie, son.
Brad Pitt, were those two people on the gator, the German tourists that got eaten?
It's a memorial for them. Yeah, but you can see how easily this thing comes up at you that big. You're kind of swimming in some muddy water in the Northern Territory. You're not living to tell the tale.
I've made better life decisions than that.
Yeah, don't go swimming up there.
There was one in Africa that killed how many people? Like 500 people. His name Gustav or something.
Oh God.
Yeah, we had a couple of them here at the alligator farm. Gomek and Maximo, just fucking 12 and 13 feet long. These things are gigantic.
Yeah, they're the older they are, the bigger they grow. They just keep growing and growing and growing. I remember when I was a kid, there was one called Big Mac. That name stuck with me, and he was just an enormous beast, like a dinosaur.
Gross.
That was when I was living in Cairns. You can go and see him.
I am never going to Australia.
I got it.
It's fine in the cities. It's just like anywhere else.
This is the land that produced Mad Max. Okay, so
although if you have like a tool shed, if you go to a house and you got a backyard with a tool shed or whatever, you just got to kind of don't just put your hand into dark places and pick things out of it.
Don't you know that Immortan Joe is like biographical, it's historical?
Spray everything with
Master
pesticide.
Blaster is actual reality. It's not a movie.
Right. Oh, God. Mm-mm. No, the spiders you guys have just no,
sir,
fucking no,
Nope. Almost everything I've seen come out of Australia has been something out of a nightmare for me. So I'm just never going to go there.
Leave Paul Hogan alone.
Paul Hogan, poor Paul Hogan.
I'm glad I'm not the only degenerate that was going to bring up Crocodile Dundee. Thank you, guys. I
did earlier when I talked about the raptor, and I think I offended Brad.
No, we love Crocodile Dundee. Come on.
I like Paul.
Is that man
Paul Hogan's great. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. I saw him playing poker at a casino about a year ago. He's just kind of sitting there on the low levels, and everyone was like, "Is that Paul Hogan?" And people were coming up and getting signatures. He seems pretty chill.
I wonder if he gets a lot of shit for the spoon knife thing. If people
that wasn't even him.
Like knife a spoonie.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's the Simpsons. The one where
the Simpsons takeoff of it. But I guess
The other one was a guy that had a little switchblade, and he's like, "What, sucker?" And he goes, "That's not a knife.
That's not a knife. This is a knife."
Yeah. And that's not even something to make fun of. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. I think Australians have a very fond place in their heart for Crocodile Dundee.
Those movies are great. Like I remember watching them as kids. They were fun.
Those guys exist. They're real up there in the Northern Territory in Darwin. There's people like that.
Creek.
Yeah. So
Walkabout Creek.
I remember being like, I want to say probably about 6 or 7 when my dad was watching Crocodile Dundee, and that whole line of "That's not a knife, this is a knife," and he pulls out this giant machete. I was like, Dad, he's so cool. And my dad was like, you want to see a good knife? And he took me upstairs. He has like katanas and fucking. My dad wishes that he was like,
hell yeah.
Your dad's masculinity was being threatened by Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah, my dad carried around a machete. He always had a machete. He liked to chase people with machetes, my dad.
Nice.
Oh, goodness.
Jesus.
He chased 3 neighbors with a machete.
It's a little Tony Montana, but okay.
My dad taught me how to throw knives when I was very young. Like I was probably 8 years old, and he took me out back, and we had like a little. It used to be a basketball hoop backboard, and he like turned it over and painted this really shitty target on it, and he put it at one end of the yard, and then he came over to me and he goes, "This is how you hold a throwing knife," and he's like, and then you just throw it like this and let it go. And I was like this, and I threw it, and I got a bullseye. And he goes, "I'm getting you a set when you get married." Like,
hell yes.
I'm getting you a set. It's gonna have a garter belt, so you'll always be prepared. And you know what? I got married, and I never got my fucking set of throwing knives.
Did they bring it up?
I did. I was like, Dad, I've been married for a while now. Where are my throwing knives on a garter belt? And he was like, oh yeah, I did say that, didn't I? And then I still never got them. I was like,
you gotta keep this motherfucker in line. Come on now.
Right? My dad started like whittling down his knife set, and I was like, you still didn't get me throwing knives. Like, you got me a shitty pocket knife. Where the fuck are my throwing knives?
Throwing knives are fun. Throwing axes is more fun.
I definitely want to go, but I'm really concerned because they're like, we're gonna drink and then throw knives. I was like,
you drink.
It's the Viking fucking code. You drink, you fucking throw axes. Is what you do.
Who needs 10 toes anyway?
Fuck yeah.
You see that woman, that gif of that woman who throws it down onto the ground, it bounces back right over her head.
Jesus. Oh,
there are certain people that shouldn't throw axes, and there are certain people that shouldn't shoot guns either. Like the people that have like the butt of the gun right next to their face. Yeah. You know, you gotta learn real quick.
Dude, let me tell you, having run a range before,
really,
the shit that you see. Oh, I remember. So I served, and so I was infantry. So obviously, rifle marksmanship was like a big deal.
Sure.
I remember we were running a range once, and there was these 2 girls that were talking about, were laughing about like not even getting like a 100 on the marksmanship. It was like, there are like fucking 6 targets at like 25 meters out. What the fuck are you doing? Like these things are like right next to, like right up in front of you. And I was just like, how are you doing this? Like, are you not looking through your scope? Like you have a red dot optic. You put dot on target and you press the trigger and you hit the target. Like that's how easy it is.
Like, were they shooting ironically and like trying to miss? Because it really sounds like they were trying real hard.
I remember hearing them giggling about it, and I'm just like, why are you fucking laughing? Like that, like we could be laughing at you.
Oh my god! In the zombie apocalypse, we're gonna die first.
So I will say my favorite part about firing is that apparently when I put on a gas mask that was ill-fitting and scratched to shit, my accuracy went up. The only reason I missed marksman was because my gun kept jamming, and the motherfucker that was unjamming it for me unloaded 8 of my live rounds into the ground to make sure it was unjammed before he gave it back to me. And so I missed marksman by 2 shots.
The Air Force made fun of.
I missed marksman by 2 shots because 8 of my live rounds went into the ground instead of me getting a chance to actually hit the damn target.
This is why the Air Force gets made fun of. Is shit like that.
I was so bad. I was like, I have never fired a rifle in my life, and I was about to get marksman, you asshole.
I mean,
I think you could have figured out if it was jammed or not in 5 instead of 8. Come on.
It jammed about 6 times because all of our guns were they never gave us the good ones. They gave us the ones that everybody like who had to all the little girls who were afraid to fire who would fire twice. They'd be like, "Oh my gosh!" and like dropping. Like, it's a live gun. Don't.
What weapon systems were you guys using? Were you guys using like M4s, M16s?
M4s.
Okay, so what it sounds like to me is like.
Really well loved M4.
I've never seen an like. I had the same M4 for like. So I had my first one that I was assigned with my unit for around 2 years, and then the next one I was assigned I had for like the rest of my time in.
Okay.
And I must have fired over
you
like
throw it in fear multiple times.
No, but I did go through a bog with it.
Did
so
you?
I don't understand. Like all that requires is proper weapons maintenance. And
sweetie, these were the ones that they gave the little girls who were afraid of BB guns.
Yeah, I understand it. It just and I get it. I get it. I understand where you're coming from. It's just one of those things that I'm just like I have never had like the only weapon system that I've had jam on me more than once was a 249 saw firing blanks. That weapon system does not like blanks, especially since it's chain fed. And so you will spend 3/4 of your time just doing pops on it, just constant weapons malfunction drills rather than firing rounds.
It's a saw. I'm pretty sure blanks piss it off.
Yeah. Okay. That's exactly what it does.
Full disclosure. The Air Force fires pretty much once in their career unless they deploy. I have been in for 14 years. I fired one time. It was in basic. It was to qualify.
And that's fine. Once again, it was just that thing that just went off in my head. I was like,
I watched a girl. I'm not shitting you. I watched a girl with her rifle, and she had it downrange. And then when she went to fire, she pointed it straight at the fucking ground. And I was like,
"You're not instilling much confidence in the armed forces here."
The guy
it's the girls that they had extra time to get them proficient because there's some girls who probably should not join the military.
That was my man.
However,
you guys make me want to go to the range.
I desperately want to go. Oh my gosh, Luke, come up to Maryland. Let's go fire some fucking weapons. I'm so down.
Go to Maryland. Go to Virginia, where the ranges are actually cheap, ammo is cheaper, and you don't have much restrictions.
Fine, I'll meet you in Virginia.
Yeah, we can go. I'll take you to a range.
Yes! Holy shit, that would be so much fun.
I'll teach you how to actually shoot because I don't trust that the Air Force did.
Shots fired.
Random fact. I learned how to shoot, but it was 14 years ago. But I am a left-handed shooter.
I am as well, so that you're good.
Yes. Okay. We were talking about themes like an hour and something ago.
We're still talking about themes.
The theme of this stream is chaos.
We talked about Australia and the horrific things there, and then we started talking about weapons. I don't think we're talking about themes anymore. Hey, Will, you got any other questions for us so we can maybe get a little bit back on track?
Look, I can actually see Will again. There's his face.
No, I'm just. I think that's sort of the pattern of these streams. That the first hour and a half we really get down to it, and then we have a little fun at the last half of it. You know.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, you forgot the 45-minute interlude on ancient Greece.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but even that got kind of woven back in, right?
Listen, that made me miss my world mythologies book. I'm going to go look at that book tonight.
Yeah, but we know, but it didn't drop anyone. Everyone was watching. The numbers weren't going down, so people found it interesting.
It made me think.
Our numbers dropped a little.
I studied that stuff for so many years, and I'm just being schooled here because I don't remember any of these names or anything. So
which thing on what?
I remember.
I studied a lot of these stories. I didn't go in depth, super duper in depth like that. But yeah, I studied this as a subject for a couple of years at school.
Mm-hmm.
Greek mythology and
Romans. I hate them.
God.
I always enjoyed Norse mythology best of all.
Yes.
No,
have you guys seen that parody Viking show?
No.
Oh, the
Yes.
Norseman up on was it? Is on Prime or Netflix or whatever?
I think it's on Netflix.
The comedy
so
one.
fucking funny.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Oh
It's a
my
one. It
gosh,
starts
that's
off basically with the funeral thing where you shoot the arrow into the pyre as it's kind of floating away down the river, and the guy just keeps missing and missing and missing.
Is it called Norseman?
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
right, Northman.
It
Norseman, I
takes so
think?
long for them to light it.
It's
Well,
a very
we
funny
didn't
film.
actually quote the 13th Warrior though when he brought it up and he said, "Remember, he's like, my mother was a pure woman.
Yeah.
At least I knew my
That's-
father."
That's
and we
actually
call
my
it-
favorite scene in that whole movie.
My father was I don't know if it's I think probably my favorite scene in the whole movie is right after the duel with Herger the Joyful, and Antonio Banderas goes after him to bitch him. He's like, "You could have killed him at any time." Yes.
Yeah.
Why didn't
Yeah.
you? Because now they have to judge for things that they cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
Man, calculate what we got here.
That was a smartly written movie.
It was. Well, it's based off a Michael Crichton book. It's based off of Eaters of the
Mhm.
Dead, which is his version of Beowulf.
Yes,
I actually have
okay,
a copy of
yes.
it right here.
I have the audio version.
Good
You
decisions.
guys. Gosh, you guys just have all the books.
This is actually
All
the
of them.
original Chronicle it's based on.
Yeah. It's a great film. I don't
So Jay could probably read this.
I honestly
Ibn
don't
Falan.
understand why it didn't get the traction. It was awesome. The only things that I have
Big name star, and based on a Michael Crichton book, you'd think it would get attention.
Well,
But
that
it
and
didn't.
it had just such a great production, but it's aged incredibly well for a movie that was made in the late '90s. It still looks
Early
great.
yeah.
I don't know, when I was a little kid, that scene when they first encounter the Vendo in the beer hall, and
It's
they're laying there, and that's a scary ass scene when you're a kid.
Yeah.
But before you kind of realize that they're just men, but the way that they were filmed, they kind of come off animalistic, and you only see glimpses of them and the sound they make.
And that was the whole thing. I really like that. I really like that movie, and fucking the ending of that film is
Seven Samurai.
good. Well,
Because the end of Seven Samurai, I love that because in the rain, because it reminded me of that.
It's like the whole thing is supposed to be Beowulf.
Yeah.
In his whole journey.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, his name was Bovine.
yeah,
Which always made me chuckle just a little bit.
And they go, and the king is Hrothgar. Remember?
yeah. Well, it's
Yep.
still it's the same.
What
It's
troubles
the
this
same
line?
It's supposed to be like the pre-Anglicanized version of Beowulf, because Beowulf is a Viking story, but the version of the story that we have is very Christianized and what have you, because it was preserved by the Anglicans. So
Anglo-Saxon Chronicle.
yeah, and so that was the whole point. Was it was supposed to be this more grounded version of the Beowulf story, where rather than it being like a mythical creature of Grendel, it was the Vendo, and they were like a remnant of
Neanderthals.
man. They were cavemen that were that ate people.
Yeah, they're basically Neanderthals.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I thought that there was a lot of really good stuff with that. There's a whole bunch of movies from that year that I think that got a bad shake, or that I just love because for the sake of I love them. The Shadow, 1994, is a classic.
I love that movie.
I got
The
one for
Phantom.
you. I got one for both of you. Demolition Man. Is that not prescient?
Dude, to go back to the Shadow though, I genuinely it really sucks because I think that the problem with the Shadow is it had everything going in its leads, it had everything going in its design and its score, and then its support cast was well cast, but they did nothing with them. You had the Shadow, who was a very static character for the majority of the
It was a bit one-layered, wasn't it? There wasn't really much going on
Did
behind
Russell
the scenes.
Mulcahy direct that movie? Because he's like the poor man's Ridley Scott, man. He's not bad.
Let me double check.
Brad should know Russell Mulcahy. He's a
Mulcahy,
jewel of Australia.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yes, because they all know each other, Will.
Have you ever seen that movie Razorback?
Yeah, no, like he did, and I think that another big thing. I know that the set for the final act of the film got destroyed by like an earthquake or something, and that didn't help. And it messed with their initial plans for the final act of the movie. I'm really big into The Shadow.
He also directed Highlander, by the way.
Yeah, there's no reason. Like The Shadow, I think could have been this very successful thing, and honestly could have built a franchise, in my opinion. But because you've got this character that every night stalking vigilante is based off of, that is a big fucking crock.
Damn, Gustav.
Big boy.
It reminds me of what was that hilarious movie about a giant crocodile? What was it? With Bill Pullman.
Lake Placid?
Lake Placid. That's
fucking Betty White tossing fucking chickens to a giant croc.
Like, I hope he bites her dick off.
I'm out. I quit. That's no.
You quit what?
Too much croc?
Mm-mm.
You know how they drag you down to the bottom and then they spin you around
and they break you.
Okay, all right.
Oh my God,
Mike, you haven't been on my show yet. Don't make me cancel your appearance already, okay?
Oh shit! Damn!
I'm already horrified. I would like to sleep tonight.
So Shay, I'll do the Ra's al Ghul. What is it you truly fear?
He says from the shadows.
It depends. It depends on how you want to
insert maniacal cackling here. Yeah.
What is it you truly fear?
So the biggest, if we're going to talk about fears, probably my biggest fears. I am terrified of the dark, and it isn't so much the dark itself; it's the shit that can be in the dark.
Remember the shape of darkness.
I feel the same way about really deep water.
That is, but see, that still goes back. All right, Luke, that still goes back to darkness, right? Really deep water, you can't see what's in the water with you.
Exactly.
Because it exists down deep is fucking horrifying. It's got.
That's why the novel Sphere fucked me up. Like that whole. No. Sorry.
I'm scared of
everyone who talks about like the Meg and all that shit that happens, like.
Yes.
That show.
Have you read those books?
Fuck that. No.
Yeah, I've read it. The Meg and what's it called? The second one, the Trench.
The Trench, Hell's Aquarium. I've read them all. Oh my God, they're fucking great.
The third one is terrible. I like the Trench though.
A shark with the size of a mouth the size of a garage door. Oh fuck no.
I've always had this primordial fear of the Leviathan, and but the mixture of water and
you
creature,
and the rest of the
like
human fucking race.
You know what I mean? It's a chaos thing, I suppose. But this idea of something in the water that is huge and devouring really scares the crap out of me on a primordial level.
Well, okay, so here's
death scares us all.
No, I'm not afraid of that. I'm afraid of that death.
Here's the thought as to why I think that is, right? So when you can put your feet firmly on the ground, it doesn't matter that something is bigger than you. You have the false security that you can still do something. Yes. Because you can feel something beneath you. You can push off of it. You can run. You can feel the ground beneath your feet, right? Where you're in water, not only is it difficult for you to breathe, it is difficult for you to tread water. Eventually, you're going to get tired. And if there is something that is in the water with you, it can maneuver 10,000 times better than you could ever do yourself.
Especially with all teeth. It's just a maw.
Yes. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. You could be an Olympic swimmer. You could be somebody who is very comfortable in the water. Being in the water against something like a shark is always going to have the upper hand. Always.
Wait.
Have you guys gotten to the end of the book, The Meg? Have you guys read the ending of The Meg?
Bancroft, what?
There's a famous Australian surfer who punched a shark in the snout and fought it off.
Really?
In the water. It was coming at him, and he punched the thing in the face.
I got a better one for you.
I remember what happens at the end now.
I got a better one for you, Mike. When I was stationed in Monterey, I heard about a guy who was surfing, right? While I was there, he was surfing in the bay. It's supposed to be the safest place for you to surf because it is cold and sharks are very lazy. They don't like things that they have to fight for. They don't like the cold, even the slightest bit discomforted, right? This dude got shot up from underneath by a shark. And then this bitch ass shark had his entire leg down his throat and was biting him all around like this. This guy was punching it in the face as much as he could. You want to know why the guy lived? There's only one reason the guy lived.
Why?
School of dolphins nearby that noticed a man was in danger came over, started hitting the shark with their fucking fins. Okay? The shark was like, this is a fucking pain in my ass.
So they annoyed him to death.
Right, and he was like, well, this wasn't an easy meal that I expected. Let the dude go. The fucking dolphins circled him and waited for a wave to wash him ashore. If he had stayed out in the water for another 10 seconds, he would have bled to death. But because there was already paramedics on shore, because his buddy was already on shore and was like, holy fuck, my dude's being eaten by a shark and I don't know what to do about it, they were all waiting. And so he washes on shore. They take him in, rush him to the emergency room. The dude has this gnarly ass scar that goes like this on his front and his back. His leg was halfway down a shark's fucking throat. Nope. And they go, so you think you'll ever surf again? And he goes, oh yeah, as soon as I'm healed from this. I was like, you should have died. You should have just
They all surfers say that. They all say that.
It's terrible.
Hey Luke, are you talking about when the Meg swallows Jonas? Is that what you're talking about? Okay. And what he does down his throat, that thing? Okay.
That the whole end of that book, I'm like, fucking nope.
You guys are scared of the wrong thing.
I have coulrophobia.
What's that?
I have coulrophobia.
What is that?
What is that?
Fear of clowns.
Fear of what?
Clowns.
Crabs?
Clowns.
Clowns, damn you!
Oh, that's interesting.
That's why you're doing a bit of what's that therapy? You know, where you slowly
yourself to the fear.
Yeah.
So Brad, what you said we were afraid of the wrong thing.
Yeah, you're afraid of the wrong things. Just talking about like megalodons and stuff. You know, dinosaurs, whatever, like ancient creatures. There's a series on YouTube, you can check it out, and it's not gruesome because they do it in cartoons, but they talk about the worst punishments in history, like capital punishment, and it goes back through medieval times, back to ancient times. You should be scared of people doing these insane things, like utterly insane. The some of the torture devices they came up with, some of the punishments were just
the wheel.
Well, crucifixion, nailing somebody to a cross.
Yeah, but even worse than that stuff. Like, if you're a bit morbid, go check this shit out because you'll just be like, it's hard to believe that people used to do this to each other. The burning bull thing, that thing where they just put you up in a cage and let you sit there until you rot away. Just crazy stuff.
What's the ones the Vikings just do? The splayed eagle? Is that what it's called?
Oh, yes.
Sorry, what?
Nope.
Yeah,
Blood eagle.
It's messed up. Like that's the stuff that I get squeamish with when I see that stuff. I'm like, oh god.
That's because you're fucking supposed to. That's just gory. Of course, yeah.
You know what's scary about it is, if civilization goes to hell, it all starts up again. That's what's scary about it. I'm not scared about the megalodon because I don't think it's ever coming back.
Okay.
Brad, we've already seen it. We saw that during the French Revolution, during the Terror. You know, when people were being vivisected in front of the crowd. You know, it's like it's happened in the most civilized of places, quote unquote.
Yep.
I know.
We're talking about France, so
why do you keep
civilized.
showing me these things?
You know what's funny? You know what I love about Shay is that she's very outwardly tough, but she's very squeamish.
Shay, the huntsman spider is a little teddy bear.
Okay.
It's a very friendly spider. It may be big, but it's not bad.
Have you ever seen a close-up of a spider's eyes? They're actually rather cute.
Give me a machete and I'll be fine. Because if it comes at me, I'm hacking every last leg off.
Huntsmen don't come at you. They stay by themselves.
Then we'll be fine. As long as it stays in its corner and I stay in my corner, we're fine.
I have to go. I'm the designated man of the house to go and collect them and take them outside.
No.
Have you guys seen a camel spider? Because fuck those things.
I've seen them in real life.
I've seen that from Iraq.
No.
You've got like 4 or 5 of them like chained together.
Yeah, I've seen them in real life. They're big fucking things. They're not great.
Do they bite?
Horrifying.
Fuck no.
Are they aggressive though?
They're
Are
big,
they
and
angry?
they fucking startle you too.
Do they
Like,
bite?
let me tell you, you won't know that they're sitting next to you for a minute because they like to sit in the shade. I deployed to Qatar for a year. They like to sit in the shade. They don't actually really go like all the rumors of them like trying to go after you and what have you. Not really true. They like to follow you because they like sitting in your shade.
It's like the chill.
But like you'll be sitting there and then like your buddy will point out, oh, holy fuck, and then you like turn around and go, oh my god. But like it was very popular to like catch camel spiders and like put them in a scorpions and stuff.
So they're basically like unemployed insects. They just like to hang out next to you because they're lazy.
Yep.
They're waiting for you to spark up that joint. That's what they're waiting for.
I mean, you know the whole thing that like Africa's where like flies go to retire.
Oh yeah.
The guys in New South Wales here in Australia, they're the ones, they have the funnel web spider, and that is the nastiest spider in the world. That thing is super aggressive. It's black. It's thick. It's huge. It's got massive claws.
Smish.
It's
because it fucking is.
It's like a half shiny, half furry. It's got these huge things. They get into you and they're bent, so that once they're biting you and they bite you really aggressively, they don't let go. You got to get in there with like a pencil or something to pry it out. They're nasty. I'm really glad they don't live down here where I live.
Brad, what you're saying is a social construct, and we just have to change our perceptions.
Shut the fuck up.
These spiders are unjustly stigmatized.
Yeah. Well, you'll say that when you put your hand into your laundry and come out with one of them stuck into your palm.
Isn't that the problem with liberals, though?
Smish first, ask questions later. That's
I like them in idea, not in practice.
Okay.
I like them outside of my house.
Okay, Block.
I like them on Brad, not on me.
Listen,
Animal Planet.
My parents and I moved to Florida when I was like 5, and we rented Arachnophobia from the local video store.
Why?
No. The next day, I went outside and I was playing around, and I saw this big ass web, and I saw this bright yellow spider in it. It's what we call banana spiders down here. Took a stick, probably about like that big around, tossed it up in the web. It stuck there and hung. The spider looked at me like, asshole, why'd you do that? I was like, nope. I'm done. I'm out of here. Ever since then, no.
You should have thrown him so he could scuttle back and go, what the fuck is your problem?
No, so it's prehensile steel. It's ridiculous.
So I love it. I have in my in my backyard, in between 2 posts underneath my deck, every year this exact same orb weaver shows up. Right.
I love them.
And he is so fucking funny because he will weave his web, and the first couple of years that we were in this house, he would weave it way down. And then my dog would cut through to go to the bathroom, and he was like, fucking dog. So he started weaving it up higher. And then he started noticing that I would notice where his web was and I would walk around it. So he started weaving it where it wasn't someplace that I would walk.
How considerate of him.
There would still be like bugs that would come through. So he did it where the dog wouldn't be and I wouldn't be, but he would weave his web, and he was like, she leaves me alone. And sometimes she leaves the light on, so bugs will be attracted and end up in my net. And
so he kills for you, Shay.
Yeah. And so I would turn the light on and I would just leave it on, and all these bugs would get in his web and he would just spin them all up. And it was like this nice, harmonious, like living relationship that we have.
It's like cats, right? They kill for you.
Yeah, we had a good, nice orb spider at our place as well, but his was against the fence, so it was out of the way of everyone.
Oh yeah, no,
I had
my guy goes
above my front door.
Hey guys, I gotta roll out. I've got my 2-year-old, and he's gonna run my ass over in the morning if I don't go to bed now. So
no problem.
Nice chatting with you, Odin.
Hey man,
thanks,
pleasure chatting with all of you. Hit me up on Twitter. My handle's at Elysian
and back Elysian Fields.
Yes,
please. I actually, Shay, check your DMs. I just sent you the Jim just sent me the print.
I saw that you sent me DMs. I'm super stoked. Oh my gosh, that's fucking beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty good. We'll be putting up, so any deluxe physical tier of the book is getting an additional print to go along with it by Jim O'Reilly, and this is what we got.
That is dope. I'm very happy with that. That is awesome.
So it's going to be 11 by 17.
Oh, sweet. That's a good size too. Okay. Go back to Elysian Fields for sure. Especially if you want anything that has to do with Greek mythology, because obviously Mike knows everything.
Mythology in general. Greek is definitely my forte and what have you, but I've done a lot of research for a lot of different other mythologies because there are going to be a lot coming to bat. And don't worry, Death Metal Hero, the Valhalla is going to get its chance in the sun in this series. You're gonna. I do plan on having Siegfried and Beowulf have a nice little tussle with Team Hades, so it's going to be fun. Great talking with all of you guys. This has been an absolute blast.
Good night, sir. Sleep well.
And thanks for letting me lecture on Greek mythology for about an hour and a half. It's a good time.
It was a good refresher, man. Thank you.
It was.
You made everybody want to go and get the Iliad is what just happened.
Hey, I mean,
I got the Odyssey.
I'll product placement that all over the place. That, and if you guys are looking for a good Greek mythology book to read, I highly recommend either Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller or Circe by Madeline Miller. Both excellent books. But somebody just said they got an Odyssey for Assassin's Creed, and I'm not going to.
I heard that.
Just don't do any of that. Go watch Troy.
That good.
It's got a great performance by Eric Bana, local Australian boy. Brad Pitt.
I will actually give that to Eric Bana. Played a very good Hector, even though they made Hector kill all sorts of people that he shouldn't have.
That's a big friggin' spot.
Yeah, those things are
That is the reason why I carry a hatchet around with me in this state.
That looks like it's good. That looks like it could impregnate.
Look at the size of that thing.
Nope.
Nope.
I'm noping the fuck out.
Nope.
Noping the fuck out.
Nope.
Crab that crawled out of the ocean.
Have you seen the goddamn coconut crabs that'll like attach themselves to a trash can in southern Florida?
No. Insane.
I don't
They're
need
like
to see
spider
any
crabs
more
from Japan.
horrifying, like fucking spiders.
Oh man!
Okay?
When I first saw Alien, I slept with my face down, so nothing could get me in my sleep.
I watched Arachnophobia, and there were giant spiders crawling on the walls. It was terrifying.
I didn't put my feet on the covers for many years.
I need you guys to explain this to me. How does somebody with arachnophobia be the designated spider catcher in the house? I don't understand this. Because every time a spider shows up in the house, somehow I have to go and catch it, and I don't appreciate this at all.
Jay, didn't we already have this psychological discussion last week?
Yeah.
Because you're the only one strong enough to deal with it.
Didn't I already come to this conclusion with you?
Yes, you did. Thank you, Will. We don't need to say it publicly.
Exactly.
Well, I got to be honest, guys. This has been super, super fun, but we have been so off of topic for so long.
I think we got in a good chunk of it was on topic, actually.
We did. I would say probably at least 2/3 of what we talked about was very solidly on topic. The last hour, probably not, but that's fine.
But that happens to all these streams.
Exactly, and it's been very entertaining. I think this is a perfect place for us to stop. I already know what we're doing for our theme for next week.
Okay.
Because we had talked about so many different things. I want to talk next week. I want to talk about fear. I want to talk about the things that terrify you and how you bring your fears into your writing and help terrify your readers. So I think
everybody think about it for a week.
Yes. So everybody sit and percolate on this. And I want you guys to come back in a week and I want us to discuss your deepest, darkest fears and how you bring that through in your writing, because that's actually an incredibly hard thing to sell somebody else on a fear that maybe they don't possess, but that you do. And I really want to see, I want to see what you guys kind of have to say.
We're going to talk about David Cronenberg.
We will talk about whatever ends up happening, like we do for most of these streams. Gelth, I'm not clicking on any more of your links. I refuse. You scarred me enough. He says that it's something that'll make me smile. Let's see. Okay, no. All right, we can end on that. We can.
I don't click on random links because they go to random places.
This better not be porn.
It isn't porn. It's look at how cute.
Let's see.
Happy little wombat.
Right.
No, that's a it's got a really weird name. It's not a wombat. It should be a quokka. Quokka.
Yeah.
Some
He's
of the
so
photos they
happy.
catch from it. Yeah. There's some of the most cutest photos ever of these things.
So I'm super happy that I was able to have all you guys on. This was a really, really fun stream. It always is whenever I get a bunch of writers together. We always talk about really cool things, and then we get horribly off topic and maybe a little bit drunk and talk about some other things that are funny as hell. But thank you guys all for coming out. I've linked in the description for the video all of your guys' projects. So if you're wanting to back anything, make sure you go and check out Black Flag. Make sure you go and check out The Lucent. Go check out Through the Woods. And do not forget to check out Elysian Fields. They're all phenomenal books. Definitely worth your backing. I've backed all of them except for Black Flag because, let's be real, I'm going to back it a pretty high level, and I'm probably going to need another month to get that
Well,
money.
you missed the pages, so you're not getting any pages.
I'm not getting any pages. That's not happening, but I want swag, and that costs funds. So I'm going to have to wait.
That swag is like the best swag on Indiegogo for any book.
Dude!
Badass, isn't it?
I'm having such a hard time because I'm like, I want the t-shirt, but I want the shot glasses, but I also want the challenge.
Our
phone.
shit is the shit.
It is so true.
T-shirt and shot glasses, yes.
Yes! Epic.
The ICU is going to be where it's at.
Hell
right.
yeah, it is.
Everybody make sure that you go check out all of these awesome projects.
Yes, please.
And thank you guys so much for being on. Thank you to everybody on the panel. You guys are always so much fun to be around, and we will absolutely check you guys later.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good
See
night.
ya.
Night, chat.